Manhwa Yun, the Grand General of Bukshan, is the one who uses martial arts to suppress the chaotic political situation. After pacifying the world, Manhwa Yun placed Urim on the throne and appointed 6 close aides who had been through life and death with him as kings to assist the new emperor. But peace only lasted for a moment. A sudden black storm arrived, bringing ominous signs. The rain began to fall silently, as if signaling an unavoidable event. From the midst of the chaotic heavens and earth, a shadow fell, a charred body carrying a terrifying mystery about to be unveiled. Manhwa Yun fell in a pitiful state, his whole body soaked in blood, his eyes stunned amidst the cold rain. Despite being severely wounded, Manhwa still forced himself up, gritting his teeth to endure the pain, refusing to fall easily. As he just lifted his head, he suddenly trembled. Familiar figures were closing in through the rain. On the rocky peak, under the dim moonlight, the 6 kings who had been through life and death with him now stood facing him like strangers. Manhwa blankly exclaimed, "6 kings, are you betraying me?" His heart shattered more than his external wounds. One of the 6 kings stepped forward, cold eyes, uttering words like a verdict. "Grand General, now is the time for you to leave." Manhwa screamed madly, calling out the traitor's title directly. "Have you forgot me already, Sword King?" Blood mixed with rainwater flowed down his battered face. Manhwa choked as he named himself, as if begging for any remaining memory. But the only answer was blood. From a body that kept bleeding endlessly, trust was torn apart bit by bit. Though his body was nearly exhausted, Manhwa still stood up, not to survive, but to face betrayal with the last gaze of a general. Manhwa's eyes widened in horror, reflecting the cruel truth. The end was approaching. One of the kings stepped forward, drawing a cold sword. "With that body, what else can you do, Grand General?" The response was an explosive leap into a sea of fire. Manhwa chose to resist rather than kneel. Despite being at his limit, Manhwa charged forward, regardless of the predetermined outcome. "Even if I do this, will anything change?" Amidst the fiercely blazing light, Manhwa's final figure became a symbol of unyielding resistance. The kings were horrified by Manhwa's power. A heavily wounded body could still emit a terrifying force. Manhwa faced the traitor, enunciating each word. "I cannot die and let you live comfortably. If I must die, I will take you down with me." Before the blood could stop flowing, Manhwa gathered his energy and burst out. "Behold my final descent dance, Manhwa Yun." In that determined gaze was the last dance, the destructive dance of a betrayed war god. The kings wavered, some doubted, others stepped back. But the Sword King shouted loudly, "Stop talking nonsense, prepare to fight." All the masters were astonished when Manhwa Yun, despite his battered body, unleashed an aura that even those at the supernatural realm had to respect. He truly deserved the title of war god. The corner of Manhwa Yun's mouth slightly curled, blood spilling down, but his eyes remained extremely clear. Despite the pain, he did not give up. Manhwa Yun told himself, this body could only hold on for half an hour. In that short time, could he face 6 supernatural masters? He suppressed negative thoughts and focused all his spirit on the battle. If he could not survive, at least he would drag one enemy down to hell with him. Shouting loudly, Manhwa Yun challenged all his enemies at once. Amid the howling wind and rising murderous aura, Manhwa Yun's eyes showed loneliness. He whispered, remembering someone, "If you were here, everything would be different. Where are you?" A sharp spear suddenly pierced Manhwa Yun's chest. Blood gushed out violently. His face was shocked, only managing to utter a familiar name. "You." The surprise turned into rage. Manhwa Yun screamed, his eyes blazing red in extreme pain and sudden despair. From behind, a sneaky attacker approached, whispering coldly. Although Manhwa's body was battered, he did not expect this person could unleash such power even after losing his legs. Amid the blood pooling around his eyes, Manhwa froze. That voice, it could not be mistaken. His gaze gradually turned to despair. A figure dressed in royal attire appeared in the rain. A calm smile appeared on his face as he pronounced the verdict. "Just as I thought, you cannot be allowed to survive." This man was the younger brother he once trusted most. Manhwa Yun blankly called out, "Urim," with painful and desperate eyes, as he realized the traitor was none other than his closest kin. Severely stabbed, Xianhua screamed in utmost fury, collapsing onto the ground amid a pool of blood. The traitor stepped forward, coldly confirming that the ruling position belonged to Emperor Yurim, but emphasized that above the emperor, there once was a god, Xianhua Yun. With a gritted voice amid the cold rain, he declared, "War god Xianhua Yun, from today your history ends here." Yurim smiled contentedly, raising his head in the rain, affirming that he had finally become the true emperor. Xianhua Yun lay collapsed on the ground, drenched in blood, his eyes still looking up at Yurim full of hatred and shock. Yurim drew his sword with a cold smile, feigning pity. "You look so painful. Let me help you be freed." He raised the blood-stained sword high, preparing to finish off his brother, once the greatest war god of Bakshan. Yurim's cold eyes looked down at his brother's body, gripping the sword hilt tightly, ready to end everything. Xianhua Yun opened his eyes wide, full of hatred and despair, betrayed by the younger brother he once trusted most. Even when betrayed, Xianhua could not believe that the one behind everything was Yurim, the brother he once called kin. Lying in a pool of blood, Xianhua sobbed, calling the traitor's name, his eyes filled with pain and despair. Xianhua's bloodied hand trembled as it touched the ground, still unwilling to let go of the name Rim, the last trust he had. From where his body fell, a mysterious blue light burst forth, as if awakening something beyond the ordinary. A pillar of bright blue energy exploded in space, twisting the void as if guiding a restless soul. The male lead gasped in the darkness, sweat dripping down his soaked face, as if just escaping a nightmare resurrected from death. In front of him was a faint blue flame burning dimly, the space dark and suffocating. He murmured, not understanding where he was, only knowing it was hot and extremely strange. With a doubtful gaze, he placed his hand on the ground. The cold spread, but the chilling feeling made him wonder, was this purgatory? When he clearly saw his hand wet, he was shocked to discover what flowed on the ground was water. He bent down to look into the reflective water, and was shocked to see his own living face clearly in the shimmering mirror. Emotions mixed between fear and amazement. The male lead panicked as the water surface suddenly rippled, a strange force pulling him down as if drowning him into his own memories. He looked up at the swirling whirlpool around him, confused and frightened, asking, "What is this?" When ancient characters appeared all over the stone wall, a terrifying premonition flashed in his mind. Impossible. The male lead was stunned when he saw a child reflected in the water. The face was himself as a child. He went silent, eyes full of sorrow and despair. "I can't endure any more," a strange voice echoed from the void behind. The boy looked up through the hole in the ceiling, clearly sensing someone standing outside. The blue flames flickered and the guard's voice sounded. They were only following orders, but guilt began to emerge. Before the huge cauldron of fire, two soldiers looked at each other, unable to hide their disgust at having to throw living children into the pot to be burned. One of them exclaimed, "The palace lord is truly cruel. How could he order to burn his own flesh and blood alive?" In the prison cell, the male lead desperately slammed his hand against the wall, his eyes blazing with pain. The truth was that he himself was the medicine. When the protagonist's hand touched the wall carved with talismans, a sudden backlash of energy startled him. The violent shock threw him headlong into the water at the bottom of the furnace, his palm burning painfully, gritting his teeth in agony. He clutched his head and struggled to sit up, eyes wide with panic. This small body was too weak. At this rate, escaping was impossible. Looking up at the furnace wall where blue flames flickered, he gradually realized the structure, a giant cauldron boiling everything inside. Whispers echoed outside, a child being boiled alive. His whole body trembled. Was that child himself? Looking up at the open sky above the furnace, the male lead was horrified to see the Chenghua flames raging fiercely, the blue light flooding the space like a hell on earth. In panic, the male lead realized he was inside Chenghua. The horrifying truth made him break out in cold sweat. Outside, two soldiers talked fearfully. Chenghua was boiling fiercely, the heat so intense it could burn bones to ashes. The male lead collapsed in the water, breathing heavily. The burning heat spreading through his body made him even more desperate. He struggled to breathe amid the suffocating air, whispering in despair, If this continued before being burned alive, his mind would also vanish. The male lead gradually lost consciousness amid the scorching heat, his final thoughts fading in despair. In delirium, a strange light appeared, a faint voice calling from somewhere. "Hwa Yuna." His eyes widened. That light was calling his name like a ray of hope in hell. "Sianhwa Yun." The voice became clearer, startling the male lead. This was a familiar voice. A mysterious white-haired man stepped out from the light, standing before him as if descending from a sacred realm. The male lead screamed in horror, recognizing that the person who appeared was his master. He knelt down, urgently asking how his master could come to this place, where he thought no one could save him. A voice echoed as if from the heavens, revealing, "The descent dance of the incarnation is the dream of the incarnation." The scene appeared, blue flames engulfing a giant furnace where the incarnation was born. The voice affirmed, "This is the stage of the incarnation." The male lead's master angrily shouted, his stern gaze piercing through the flames. "What are you doing?" The male lead stood motionless, eyes wide as a mysterious sound echoed in his mind. "Jump." Immediately, his foot stomped hard on the water, as if an instinct had just been awakened. Although he did not understand why he was possessed by this boy's body, he clearly felt one certainty. He could not die here. He could not fall while the traitors were still alive out there. In this critical moment, the only thing he could trust was what his master left behind, the inherited magical dance. The male lead's eyes blazed brightly, his aura surging, the descent dance of the incarnation. The Chenghua flame blazed brightly around the sacred censer, radiating such intense heat that the surrounding atmosphere seemed distorted. Two guards stood solemnly watching the ongoing ritual. One of the two whispered anxiously, admitting that the act taking place was too cruel and beyond imagination. In the darkness of the closed room, a mysterious man wearing an ancient patterned yellow robe quietly opened the door, his eyes following the sacred flame outside. He silently stared, furrowing his brows, exuding extreme tension and suspicion. Something made him unable to look away. The Chenghua flame suddenly shifted from blue to a gloomy green, signaling a great change beginning within the giant censer. Hearing an unusual sound, the old imperial physician rushed out of the room in panic, his eyes flashing with extreme worry as he called out, "Hwa." The two soldiers on guard also noticed him, recognizing the respected imperial physician running from afar. They whispered to each other, recalling that the physician had cared for the young master for 15 years, like a father to his own son. Before the towering blue flame altar, he stood frozen, his bewildered gaze fixed on the strange fire. The physician clenched his fists tightly, trembling with anger, daring to use even Hwa for this ritual was too cruel. The divine doctor stood still, his eyes dazed, emotions so overwhelming he was speechless. Slowly stepping out of the room, he quietly moved toward the fiercely blazing blue fire outside in the courtyard. A sudden strong gust stopped him in his tracks. His voice trembled. "What is that?" He turned his head, eyes filled with extreme confusion, sensing something unusual was happening. A terrifying scene struck his eyes. His pupils contracted, his whole body shook in an undeniable shock. Amidst the radiant green light, the image of a giant dragon made of energy began to take shape, its body twisting through layers of fiery flames. The sacred dragon became clearly visible, each scale shining brightly, its aura so powerful that the entire space seemed frozen. With a resounding explosion, the divine dragon roared and soared into the sky, its terrifying power frightening everyone below. Under the swirling dragon's shadow, the old imperial physician and guards could only stand staring, trembling before the unprecedented extraordinary sight. The old physician widened his eyes, whispering in shock, "This is," as he realized that power was emanating from the young master's own hands. A swirling blue light spiraled around the small feet of the newcomer. An unusual energy began to stir the ground. Within the rolling flashes of light, a youth with tied-up hair appeared, eyes closed, body merging into the magical vortex, as if performing a sacred ritual. From afar, a white-haired man with glowing eyes shouted excitedly, "Yes, that's it." The youth slowly opened his eyes, Amidst the storm of light, his face showed determination mixed with calmness, as if ready to face anything. The white-haired man could not contain himself, leaping into the magic formation with a loud laugh. "Let me join!" Two sources of energy began to merge in a fierce burst of light. Lai Fang and his teammates channeled spiritual power, creating a magical water vortex that lifted the two into the air. Realizing the situation was out of control, Lai Fang tensely watched his comrades flying within the energy vortex. The white-haired man remained calm, a slight smirk on his lips, his eyes radiating confidence and pride. The two spun within the deep blue energy circle, their momentum surging as if preparing to activate the supreme ritual. At the heart of the furnace, a spatial gate began to open. Blue light shimmered and energy flows gradually converged toward the center. A massive energy surge erupted from the formation platform, lighting up the entire space like an uncontrollable pillar of spiritual fire. The two guards startled and stepped back, panic-stricken as they watched the exploding light. "What the hell is that?" One guard trembled and exclaimed, "I've worked here for 15 years, never seen anything like this." The other was also amazed. "And you've never witnessed this?" The first guard's eyes were full of doubt. "Honestly, no one would believe it, but this scene looks like a dragon raging among mortals." The spiritual energy swirled, the dragon's figure clearly visible in its fury. A giant divine dragon appeared in the void, bathed in blue light like thunder striking a clear sky. Everyone was stunned, no one dared to breathe loudly. The old man frowned, cold sweat pouring down. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. This is... The mysterious sensor began to crack. Ancient patterns trembled, and abnormal energy surged wildly from within. The supervisors shouted in panic, "It's the solar heavenly path, step back quickly." A crisis was about to erupt. In the glaring red light, the sensor shattered. A terrifying power burst forth, destroying everything within its range. The old man struggled to withstand the riot from the giant beam of light, eyes wide open, blood spilling from his mouth. The force was too strong for him to stand firm. Covering his mouth to stop the bleeding, the old man opened one eye wide, sweat dripping down his forehead. He couldn't believe the scene before him. The furnace was heavily damaged, steam rising thickly. Two guards lay flat on the ground, cracks running long across the stone floor. Through the haze, a small pair of feet stepped onto the ground. Around the ankles shimmered a blue aura, droplets falling onto the cold stone floor. The old man's gaze suddenly changed. His trembling pupils reflected the figure that had just appeared. A cold realization flashed through him. The male lead stood tall amid the mist and blazing blue aura, eyes wide open as if awakening from a long sleep, radiating a chilling aura that overwhelmed those around him. From afar, the old steward looked at that familiar back in horror, stammering speechless, his steps trembling as he approached. Unable to contain his emotion, he shouted loudly, "Young master!" Tears welling up, unable to believe this miracle was real. From the gloomy mist, the male lead stepped forward, a ghostly light enveloping his body, his voice echoing coldly, "From the depths of hell, I have returned." His eyes flashed with a demonic glow, sharp teeth visible amid thunderous roars, signaling the awakening of an unstoppable force. The supervisors were still in shock from what they had witnessed. The elder in yellow robes trembled as he stepped forward, eyes tense as he looked ahead. The male lead slowly raised his head, his eyes cloudy as if still not fully awake from a long dream. His wet hair hung down, reflecting the light from the surrounding spiritual power. The elder shouted loudly, his trembling voice betraying his panic, "Young master!" Scene shifted to a traditional medicine shop. Medicine bags hung dangling under the thatched roof, carrying ancient memories of healing and medicine. On the table, healing tools were neatly arranged. The light scent of herbs gently spread, signaling a new chapter about to begin. After the violent battle ended, Chung Hwa was laid on the bed, unconscious but still breathing steadily. The old servant sat nearby, eyes never leaving his young master. He quietly looked up, eyes full of emotion. After everything that had happened, he could only utter one heartfelt phrase, "Unbelievable." After a thorough examination, he concluded that Chung Hwa was only exhausted and dehydrated, with no serious injuries. His survival in the solar celestial path, furnace, was an unimaginable miracle. The door to the room quietly opened, and a figure appeared, carrying a mysterious aura that disturbed the quiet room. Two guards appeared, urgently reporting, "Imperial physician, the palace lord is urgently seeking you." The physician was startled, his eyes briefly showing concern. The physician glanced at the young master lying on the bed, quietly repeating in his mind, "Palace lord." While deeply asleep, Cheng Hwa suddenly whispered, "Understood, I'm coming." His words surprised the physician. A soft sound came from the door. Someone had just sneaked into the room. On the ceiling beam, a mysterious shadow dressed as an assassin silently observed, eyes cold and emotionless. The assassin lowered himself to approach the bed where Cheng Hwa lay, a murderous aura spreading through the air. A black-clad assassin appeared beside Cheng Hwa's bed, his eyes glowing red in the darkness, radiating a terrifying killing intent. He pulled out a small vial hidden in his clothes, acting cautiously but swiftly as if prepared beforehand. Without hesitation, he poured the liquid from the vial into Cheng Hwa's mouth, firmly holding his chin to ensure it was swallowed completely. The liquid dripped from the corner of Cheng Hwa's mouth, but his face remained motionless, lost in unconsciousness. Having completed the act, the assassin quietly withdrew, leaving the room bathed in the soft light of dawn with a mystery beginning to kindle. Cheng Hwa suddenly opened his eyes wide, his body trembling, panic in his gaze as if something had invaded deep into his mind. A painful scream tore through the space. Cheng Hwa clutched his chest, writhing in agony, the pain spreading throughout his body, making it nearly impossible to breathe. In convulsions, desperate moans echoed while the black-clad figure turned his back, stepping away slowly as if his mission was complete. The masked man coldly turned his head, eyes blazing red. He spat venomous words, "Blame your filthy mother, everything must obey the law of the sun." In the herbal medicine warehouse, the earthenware jars and bags of medicine were neatly arranged, but a special bag marked "Forbidden" hung suspended high above, hinting at an ominous sign about to come. The imperial physician had just returned, his face tired yet relieved, quietly exhaling after completing the examination and treatment of Cheng Hwa. He silently pondered the ambiguity in the palace master's attitude. Although allowed to treat, the true intention behind it remained a mystery. Upon returning to the sick room, he was stunned to find Cheng Hwa had fallen from the bed, lying motionless on the floor. Terrified, the imperial physician immediately rushed over, shouting, "Young master!" A bad premonition rising within him, fearing that disaster had silently struck. The imperial physician panicked as he embraced the unconscious Cheng Hwa, calling out loudly in fear. His eyes widened sharply when he noticed abnormal signs on the young man's face. Black blood oozed from Cheng Hwa's mouth, a sign unmistakable. The imperial physician froze, horrified, exclaiming, "Poison." But then his expression suddenly changed, and he quietly wondered, could it really be that? The imperial physician sat beside the male lead, sighing helplessly. He thought to himself that this person must have been hated by many, but with a physique bearing the solar heart, poison could not easily defeat him. After observing the male lead's condition, the imperial physician decided to prepare ground medicine and intended to leave to concoct a remedy. Before he could turn away, his eyes suddenly filled with horror upon noticing something unusual, sweat breaking out reflexively. A small needle pierced his neck, blood flowing down. In that moment, he seemed controlled by an extraordinary force. The male lead suddenly woke up, his gaze cold and sharp, holding tightly the acupuncture needle stuck in the imperial physician's neck. He stammered the name of the person before him, shocked and unable to believe his eyes. The male lead unexpectedly regained consciousness, pressing the needle against the old man's neck. His cold eyes and sharp tone made the old man dare not move. The male lead lowered his voice threateningly, demanding the other party answer all upcoming questions. A tense atmosphere enveloped the entire room. Faced with this sudden change, the old man appeared impressed. He both wondered and muttered praise as if seeing a completely different person. The old man asked back whether this was the male lead's true nature or if the solar core had caused his change. He proactively offered to answer everything. The male lead briefly frowned. He realized the old man before him was not worried but seemed to enjoy this perilous situation. The male lead noticed Ma Yui's unusually cooperative attitude. The old man did not resist. On the contrary, he seemed happy as if he had been waiting for this moment for a long time. The male lead began piecing together the whole truth. This was the Solar Hall, one of the 3 major branches of the Heavenly Demon sect, and he was the 4th young master, only 15 years old. But the reality was much harsher. His father, the Solar Hall master, had once ruthlessly boiled his own child alive to forge the solar pill. That person was clearly insane. Moreover, it was not only his father who wanted him dead. The relentless assassins following him proved that many forces in the shadows also sought to eliminate him. The male lead silently concluded, although this life was full of dangers, thanks to the solar heart core formed in that furnace, his body was now immune to all poisons, just as Ma Yui had said. The male lead felt a new heartbeat, slow but burning like a blazing sun in his chest. He had returned from death with a miraculous power. Most importantly, time had reached the 22nd year of the Jinshin era, but he died in the 7th year meaning. The 7 disasters that brought tragedy to his previous life were still alive. His blood boiled with hatred, but this body was still just a 15-year-old boy. He needed allies and could not yet determine whether the old man before him was friend or foe. The golden needle fell to the ground, the threat temporarily released, but his eyes remained vigilant without any relaxation. The male lead suddenly pulled Ma Yui's sleeve and whispered a strange sentence that made the old man turn around in confusion. Ma Yui smiled mysteriously, asking if the male lead had determined whether he was friend or foe, then praised, truly worthy of the 4th young master. The male lead was startled. A sudden surge of killing intent erupted from Ma Yui, clear and fierce. Ma Yui suddenly struck. His sleeve blazing with fire, moving at lightning speed, he thrust the needle straight toward the male lead's heart. The male lead's eyes widened in shock. The golden needle was piercing straight into his chest before he could react. The man laughed fiercely, his eyes flashing with ferocity. He asked a question that reversed the situation. What if you're wrong? The male lead immediately sensed danger. The tip was pressed against his neck, light reflecting in his tense eyes. He suddenly froze. His fierce expression turned to astonishment. Something made him hesitate. The tip stopped just inches from the male lead's left eye. Cold sweat ran down, but he did not blink. The tense moment froze time. The two stood still, only the light from the aura fluctuating around the small needle pressed against the male lead's forehead. The older man tilted his head, surprised that the male lead did not dodge the attack. He was confused inside. Do you think I wouldn't really strike? The male lead held his gaze steady, smiling coldly. He was sure the other needed something from him and would not strike. The man hesitated, then suddenly smiled. He let out a low, amused laugh. He laughed heartily, stepped back a few paces, and raised his hand to praise the male lead. The 15-year-old boy had pleased him. With a bright look, he declared, "From now on, call me master. I will teach you the strongest martial art of the demon sect, Singsabak." The male lead was stunned upon hearing the name Singsabak. It was the legendary demonic skill founded by the sect's ancestor. Could this old man truly have mastered it? Though outwardly he showed no trace of a sage's aura, his appearance gave no sign of the power matching such a legendary ultimate technique. The old man saw the male lead's expression and coldly guessed his thoughts. He doubted whether the old man was qualified to teach this supreme martial art. The old man recounted the Singsahen lineage, where martial arts were passed directly from master to disciple. He became a physician not to save lives, but to preserve his disciples during harsh training. The male lead began to feel uneasy. If a physician was needed alongside, how brutal was the Singsabak training? How many had truly survived and mastered it? The old man casually said something that stunned the male lead. No one had ever successfully mastered Singsabak before. Many had fallen in the past because their bodies could not endure it. Only the sect leader, who possessed the essence of the solar star, could receive that power. But he saw hope in the male lead. With the solar core and youth, his body would be reborn strongly upon maturity. then even the chaos of Mushington would be nothing. The male lead smiled coldly, returning from hell, now given a chance to master legendary martial arts. Hwashin Deramu and Singsabak. He would use both to repay his blood debt. The old man mentioned his identity, the fourth young master, pursued by 3 brothers from other assassin factions. Outside this medical hall, no one left him in peace. The old man suddenly signaled for silence, his wary gaze making the male lead freeze. The door swung wide open in the silent night, signaling the unexpected arrival of an important figure. A man entered, twin swords at his waist, his voice calm, just in time. The man smiled coldly. "Finally, I get to see you awake." He was Ji Chen-woo, the eldest son of Solar Palace. The old man lightly scolded him for not giving prior notice, but Ji Chen-woo only laughed and replied, "I came in a hurry, because I wanted to see the one who has stirred the entire palace." Ji Chen-woo acted familiarly, stepping forward to pat his chest and introduce himself as if he were a close elder brother, but his cold eyes did not match his smile. The male lead looked at him with contempt. Deep down he knew this man was no brother at all, just a scoundrel disguised as a close relative. Without hesitation, he replied coldly, "I don't know you." The red fire flared up. The soul of the heavenly general appeared behind the male lead, their eyes strangely alike. The heroic aura radiated as if an inheritance was about to be awakened. The big brother laughed loudly, his voice full of contempt. "The name of the northern heavenly general." His smile was half mocking, half ridiculing the opponent's identity. Ji Chen-woo sneered. "That name was left by a lowly mother." The male lead did not blink, calmly replied, "I have no lowly mother," his spirit unwavering. The male lead responded without any courtesy to Ji Chen-woo's sarcasm, with a sharp retort that enraged him. Anger surged. Ji Chen-woo intended to draw his sword impulsively, but was held back by a strong hand. It was the elder of the medical hall. He sternly reminded Ji Chen-woo that the male lead was still a patient needing treatment. Ji Chen-woo laughed coldly, declaring that the other would always be a patient, implying he was about to act and no longer needed to hide. The male lead stared intently, bluntly replied, if stubbornness continued, perhaps Ji Chen-woo himself would be the one needing medicine. He smirked sarcastically, mocking his words back at the medical hall. "Is the medicine ready yet?" His cold eyes revealed clear determination. Ji Chen-woo trembled with anger, his face flushed red, unable to believe he was provoked to this extent. He hissed with hatred. Facing Ji Chen-woo's threat, Ma Yui silently stood behind, placing a hand on his shoulder, his gaze sharp as a blade, silent yet imposing. Ji Chen-woo smirked, pretending to compromise. He turned his back and left, saying he would retreat for now, but his eyes never left the male lead. Not far away, Ji Chen-woo turned back. He placed a hand on his younger brother's shoulder, smiling but his eyes blazing with murderous intent, emitting a red murderous aura that sent chills down the male lead's spine. With blazing red eyes and a killing aura surrounding him, Ji Chen-woo smiled sinisterly. He said he would give his brother one last piece of advice, as if pronouncing a sentence. "If your mouth is small, you should know to keep silent or you will lose your tongue." Ji Chen-woo unleashed a deadly strike toward the male lead, carrying a cruel threat and burning murderous intent. Chen-woo left with an arrogant smile, not forgetting to leave a threat. "Next time we meet if you are still intact." The healer Ma Yui was stunned upon sensing the dark aura just now. He suspected Chen-woo had used a forbidden dark technique. Pain struck, making the male lead dizzy. The dark technique, a martial art that injects malicious energy into the opponent's body, was activating, destroying tendons and internal organs. The evil energy infiltrated, burning from within, but strangely. The male lead's heart did not shatter, but shone brightly. He raised his head, eyes calm. His heart glowed red brightly in his chest. "I already have the Yang heart." The male lead calmly confirmed that the dark technique was nothing to his new body. The old healer also sneered, mocking the pettiness of the Black Abyss Lord's grandson. The male lead immediately retorted with a gentle yet sharp tone. With a fresh expression, the male lead skillfully praised his master while jokingly asking if the old healer caused this mess, because he trusted him too much. Though bold in words, the male lead still pretended to hold his head and complain that he was still a patient, and could not function normally yet. The old man dropped a suspicious question about the name the male lead was using, doubting whether his mother, Sua, truly gave him that name. The male lead smiled shyly, blushing. In his heart he thought, letting them misunderstand like this might be better than the truth. The old man suggested the male lead pretend to have amnesia, since even ill believed it and had withdrawn. Whether true or not, he agreed to follow the plan. The old man turned his back and left, leaving a soft remark. "At least you know how to answer correctly." The male lead smiled subtly. The male lead sat still, arms crossed before him, his deep eyes reflecting confidence and carefully prepared plans. In the darkness, the soul of Master Yon appeared radiant, casting light that enveloped the space. The male lead emotionally called out the name of his guide. The male lead looked up toward the light, his eyes sparkling with faith and hope. The journey had just begun. Recalling in his mind, the male lead remembered the Hwashin Deramu dance. Not just a dance, but a response to the master's whistle, carrying submission and sincerity. On the tiled floor, the black robe fluttered in the wind, each movement of the male lead entwined with memories. That dance was not just skill, it was life, strength forged through hard training. The male lead placed his hand on his chest, where his heart blazed red. A flash of light, the solar heart, an immortal energy source reviving within his chest. Although his power had not fully recovered, the fire in his heart had begun to awaken. The male lead clenched his chest, admitting he still could not use powerful skills. Nevertheless, spiritual power was gradually spreading through his arms. The solar heart blazed, the dance of fire ready to erupt, a sign of his return. The male lead performed each move of the Hwashin Deramu form, blending the power of the sun into every graceful motion as if dancing. The blazing red flames flared around his body, carrying memories of joyful training and the desire to grow stronger, emotions he had once forgotten. In the dazzling flames, the male lead's eyes shone with absolute focus, his whole body immersed in a meditative state to control the energy. A smile full of happiness spread across his lips, the joy of someone gradually reclaiming himself, becoming stronger step by step. From the ground, he leapt up through the sea of fire, his figure shining like a shooting star crossing the night, executing a new explosive move. The male lead stood in the center of the arena, burning with spirit after using fire dance. In a moment of enlightenment, he sensed a perfect ray hidden in the dance. He understood, whether for revenge or independence, the first thing to seek was the way of martial arts. The male lead clenched his fist firmly, eyes resolute. He vowed to conquer the Yang heart and master the supreme art of Sun and Moon Saint Spirit, two ultimate martial arts never attained in his past life. Turning aside, the male lead muttered as if mocking himself, "It's just a dance." His cold eyes hid determination. He did not reveal his true feelings. From afar, a young woman in black appeared, watching the male lead intently. Though doubtful, she softly replied, "If you say so, I will believe." Another person approached asking about Jang Myung. The male lead walked slowly, replying that Jang Myung had left. When questioned further, he gently changed the subject, praising some recent moves as quite good. Ilseonchen evaluated the dance Hwashin just performed, bluntly pointing out it lacked core mental techniques and was merely empty movements. Hwashin pondered silently, admitting Ilseonchen had keenly noticed what was hidden in Hwashin Deramu, the ability of a true master. Hwashin suddenly asked, "Do you still remember me?" But Ilseonchen replied briefly, "No." Ilseonchen smiled and introduced himself. He was the Dharma leader of the Sun God Palace, Northern General Ilseonchen. Without hesitation, the male lead responded, "I am Hwashin." His eyes were firm, as if ready to face the destiny ahead. Ilseonchen was stunned upon hearing the name Hwashin. A flash of surprise lit his eyes, as if the past had just come alive in a moment. Then he laughed heartily, calling it the name of a martial god. He asked Hwashin if Sua had given him that name. Hwashin did not care about the origin of the name. He coldly asked Ilseonchen directly whether he could be considered an ally. For him, the important thing was not the name, but the choice of which side to stand on. Ilseonchen smirked challengingly. He declared he would not use internal energy, only fighting with his right hand, an arrogant way to test Hwashin's strength. Yun slightly curled his lips. A duel, not a bad opponent, but in his mind he was still amazed because all he was doing was a dance. Ilseonchen clenched his fist tightly, his eyes serious. He did not blame Yun for rushing forward, only reminded that any dance or martial technique, if used to cause harm, becomes a weapon. The distance between them was swallowed by the aura radiating from Ilseonchen. He spoke in a deep voice, saying that a bare-handed person like Yun at least needed a shield to survive. That statement made Yun pause. He suddenly realized this fight was not just a simple test. Ilseonchen was hinting at something about to happen tonight. Without giving Yun time to think further, Ilseonchen suddenly launched a powerful punch forward, his momentum surging like a storm. Reacting in an instant, Yun leaned aside to dodge the strike. His eyes were now cold and decisive, his hair flying along the path of his fist. Ilseonchen was momentarily startled. His eyes clearly showed surprise at Yun's reaction beyond expectations, someone he once thought was just a dancer. Ilseonchen was surprised when he sensed something in Yun's recent technique. His eyes widened, unable to hide his astonishment. Yun launched a sharp counterattack, his cold gaze, fist piercing through the defense with lightning speed. Yun spun around, perfectly combining speed and strength, creating a powerful punch like a storm sweeping down on his opponent. Ilseonchen recognized the move, Changbyup Changlin Joylek. His eyes were full of shock, unable to believe what was happening. Without hesitation, Yun continued charging like a meteor falling, his power gathering all his killing intent and determination. Throwing a punch as strong as thunder, the protagonist caused the ground to crack, his momentum pressing fiercely toward the opponent. Master Sa was stunned. Although the opponent had no internal energy, that technique carried the force of a real spear. He admitted that he had unconsciously used internal energy to block the strike, but still completely failed on the first move. The protagonist clasped his hands in salute, humbly thanked, and asked again, "Are you really the famous Master Sa?" Upon hearing this, the protagonist was puzzled when the other party suggested, "If so, should I add a second move?" Ilseonchen suddenly unleashed a deadly strike, descending from above with the momentum of a supreme sword technique, startling the protagonist who realized, could he be a swordsman? In a life-or-death moment, Ilseonchen launched a series of palm strikes like stabbing swords, but the protagonist remained calm, his gaze unwavering. When cornered, the protagonist suddenly awakened, understanding the meaning of the shield Ilseonchen had mentioned. It was an opportunity to forge oneself in real combat. With burning determination, the protagonist activated energy blazing like fire, his eyes sharp and full of killing intent, ready to confront. This time, the protagonist was the attacker. The strike wrapped in explosive energy forced Ilseonchen to dodge in surprise, his expression clearly showing astonishment. Master Sa laughed confidently. "Going airborne? A bad move, Master Sa." The protagonist rushed forward like a storm, red lightning twisting around his body. He responded, "Even if it is the essence of Japanese palace martial arts, you still have shortcomings." The protagonist's spinning charge caught Master Sa off guard. The spinning kick soared and struck Master Sa's chest directly, its force sweeping everything away. The protagonist landed amidst blazing red energy, calm but exuding terrifying pressure. Facing him, Ilseonchen knelt on one knee, eyes shocked by the overwhelming power beyond expectation. Ilseonchen slowly stood up, smiling solemnly. In his heart, he couldn't help but marvel at the protagonist's terrifying talent, unsure if it was due to effective training plans or if this person was born with extraordinary bloodline. After the battle, the protagonist smiled and asked again, "What a dance! Just as you said, right, Master Sa?" His eyes shone with excitement and confidence. Master Sa also smiled in return. "I intended to give you a shield, but unexpectedly you already possess a blade too sharp." The protagonist humbly replied, "If you had used both hands and real internal energy, I'd probably be lying in a pool of blood now." Master Sa gazed into the distance, softly saying, "Cultivating internal energy is easy, but training a person is difficult. And you, Master Sa, have truly gained real capability." The protagonist silently thought, Time might be my biggest problem. A voice rang out, "That child has no memories," causing Ilseonchen to be surprised. The silver-haired elder stepped forward, explaining that the protagonist sometimes still remembered a few things, like that dance, for example. Ilseonchen was surprised by Jang Myung's concern and directly asked why he had come here. Jang Myung handed over a scroll and declared, he came to deliver an order from the Palace Lord, a directive involving Mukinho's intervention. The protagonist turned to look at Master Jang Myung, his eyes filled with doubt. The teacher silently bowed his head, needing no words. The answer was already clear. In front of everyone, the messenger declared, "Young Master Sa must kneel, as this is a holy order from the Palace Lord." The protagonist softly replied, "Yes." The corner of young Master Sa's lips slightly curled. Though unspoken, that smile was full of self-control, as if he had anticipated everything. Slowly, young Master Sa knelt down. This was the first time he had submitted. Even before the Emperor, he had never done so. But at this moment, he was only young Master Sa of the Japanese palace. The messenger announced, "Sa Mumyang's condition has improved. From today, return to Chilgak Tower and prepare for the naming ceremony tomorrow." After a brief hesitation, young Master Sa decisively responded, "Understood." The protagonist silently thought about the upcoming naming ritual. Although he officially had no title yet, in his heart, he was always Hwa Yoon. While kneeling as ordered, the protagonist's eyes quietly met a scrutinizing gaze from an elder. A tense atmosphere lightly spread. Someone objected, arguing that the inspection ritual was meaningless for someone who had lost their memory. But the elder simply replied, "That is how we do things." The protagonist turned back wondering, besides obeying orders, what else could he do? Even though this place was a branch of the demon sect, did it really need a heretical ritual? The elder smiled and reminded, "When receiving orders from the Palace Lord, people of the Japanese palace must respond. Everything follows the Sun Law. That is how obedience is shown." In the darkness glowing red, an assassin with shining eyes thought silently, "It's not difficult, but..." The protagonist, with a calm yet thoughtful expression, recalled, "Those who tried to assassinate me also said that." When suspicion arose within, could it be that the Palace Lord himself sent the assassins? The protagonist still maintained etiquette and said, "Everything follows the law of the sun." A scroll was suddenly handed over, causing the protagonist to pause, unable to hide his confusion. With a decisive motion, the protagonist took the scroll with both hands, silently accepting the order, his eyes still filled with deep doubt in his mind. Hwa Yoon was bewildered when receiving the scroll from the messenger. The man opposite smiled meaningfully, speaking of memories. Whether they existed or not, it would not change Hwa Yoon's life. The master standing beside added, affirming, "With or without memories, Hwa Yoon's path would remain unchanged. Fate has chosen, and it cannot be escaped." The messenger looked straight at Hwa Yoon and congratulated him, because as long as there is strength, life will change. Hwa Yoon quietly asked back, did he have no doubts? With a profound smile, the messenger replied, "Doubt what? That you have become stronger, or that you are the son of Sua and the Palace Lord." The messenger turned and left. Before disappearing, he left an ambiguous remark. "For now, this is all I can say. See you another day." As Ilseonchen just left, a voice called him back. Apparently a private exchange between two elders hiding something important from Hwa Yoon. Standing silently in the distance, Hwa Yoon could only watch their figures depart. He regretted that his current body was not capable of eavesdropping on conversations through spiritual senses. A vague premonition arose. Hwa Yoon touched his forehead, puzzled. He felt certain his identity held a secret never before revealed. A burly man with fierce eyes swung his sword to attack. He cursed as he charged in, turning the scene chaotic. The male lead tried to step back to avoid the strike. The man shouted loudly, mocking him for only knowing how to run away without fighting back. The male lead calmed down, drew the fake sword in his hand, and channeled his inner strength into it. Although it wasn't a real sword, a precise strike could still make a master wary. He rushed forward like the wind, his steps determined. A thought flashed through his mind. Should he embark on the path of the solar heavenly way? The opponent smirked slightly, half smiling and half praising. He didn't expect him to be so agile, and his eyes began to show some caution. The man in yellow mocked, saying that if the male lead's martial arts skills only came from a leisurely life, it was truly shameful. The male lead calmly replied, "You don't hold a sword, you're only good at arguing." The male lead smirked slightly, countering with sharp words. Inside, he was surprised that the opponent didn't get angry as rumored, but rather remained quite calm. The man in yellow confirmed the rumor about the hot-tempered young master was true, but admitted that the male lead's eloquence was indeed excellent. The male lead smiled and gently retorted, "Still better than your swordsmanship." Inside, he realized the opponent was trying to provoke him by mentioning Jechenwu. In the arena glowing red with sunset light, the two struggled silently. The man in yellow threatened, but the male lead responded coldly. "Bloodline is not a reason for me to hold back, big brother." The man in yellow smiled wickedly, suppressing his anger at the provocation. He warned that it was just a cheap taunt he would temporarily overlook. The male lead calmly observed the opponent's reaction. He silently wondered if bloodline origins were the man's weakness. The man in yellow slowly drew his sword, his voice deepening and radiating killing intent. He said, "But you must know." Before he finished, he immediately launched an attack. The sword blade drew a bright streak in the air, accompanied by a furious roar. "Even if we share the same father, we are not alike." The male lead's eyes widened as the sword sliced through the air close to his face. He couldn't react in time to the opponent's speed and fierce killing intent. As he charged with full force, the man in yellow was momentarily confused by the opponent's face, too similar to the solar sect leader, but with eyes full of contradiction and resentment. The male lead gave a cold smile and probed like a knife. "You hate the solar sect leader, don't you?" Agitated, the man in yellow clenched his teeth angrily. The question struck a deep, unhealed wound. "Because of your mother?" A fatal psychological blow. The male lead's eyes immediately changed color. A surge of blazing killing intent rose from his gaze. He had touched on something forbidden. In an instant, the man in yellow delivered a deadly blow. The sword whistled as it plunged down. The male lead fell forward, blood splattering across the arena floor. The strike targeted not only the body but also the pent-up hatred from the past. The male lead knelt on the ground, sweat dripping from his forehead. In the blazing sunset light, he realized Jechenhyuk's sword had just wavered. Could it be that the provocation had worked? Jechenhyuk laughed mockingly, ridiculing his younger brother for crawling on the ground just to survive. But the male lead did not back down. He retorted coldly, causing his opponent to freeze. "Better than crying over mother like you." Those words seemed to touch a deep scar within Jechenhyuk. He clenched his fists tightly, his eyes blazing with anger. "What do you know?" he hissed bitterly. The male lead calmly threw out a sharp question. "Among all the wives of the Solar Palace Lord, who is the one he truly loves?" Beside him, black energy swirled like a venomous snake, ready to devour everything. Jechenhyuk slowly admitted, all marriages, including with his mother, were political. Only Ban Sua, the male lead's mother, was truly loved by the Solar Palace Lord, and the child sacrificed long ago was the one standing before him now. Jechenhyuk was confused by the words piercing his mind, as Jechenwu questioned him back about the real cause of his hatred. Jechenwu's eyes shone brightly, his voice sharp and full of implication. Jechenhyuk denied all speculation, raising his blazing red sword, his gaze icy cold. But his words were full of meaning. "If you die, wouldn't father also suffer?" Jechenwu was stunned. Everything Jechenhyuk said contradicted the memories in his heart of a father who once imprisoned him and coldly chose him as a sacrifice. Under the golden red sunset, Jechenwu recalled the bitter past. If he was loved, why was he imprisoned? He was not unfortunate but pushed into the abyss by his own father's hand. Painful memories surfaced when he was ordered back to Churyagek, taken away like a sacrificial object. In his memory, his father showed no hesitation. That was when he realized fatherly love was just a lie. Despite the turmoil inside, the protagonist still gave a bitter smile. The most important thing now was to survive. Jechenhyuk laughed coldly, mocking that both were bastards, affirming he would not hesitate to kill someone of the same bloodline. He raised his sword high, declaring the harshest law of the solar divine palace. Only those with a name are considered human, and he was not one of them. The protagonist was stripped of all rights to exist, judged that no one would care about his death. Refusing to accept fate, the protagonist launched a fierce counterattack, determined to fight for survival against cruel destiny. The male lead entered a room full of medical equipment. He coldly looked at the middle-aged man lying in the hospital bed, Lu Bon Tan, his biological father. Without any emotion on his face, he silently observed. Lu Bon Tan noticed the male lead's presence. He sat up, his eyes shocked upon seeing his son. He tried to speak, but the male lead only looked at him with cold eyes. The male lead did not respond to his father, only placed an object, possibly evidence or a keepsake, on the table. Lu Bon Tan was stunned, his eyes full of regret mixed with fear. The atmosphere between them froze. Lu Bon Tan tried to justify or explain something, but the male lead remained silent. He turned his back and walked away, leaving no chance for his father to explain. The door closed behind the male lead. Inside the hospital room, Lu Bon Tan slumped down, his eyes empty. The reunion between father and son ended in absolute silence and unspoken severance. The male lead landed on a wasteland after a fierce battle. Blood stained his clothes, his hand gripping a broken sword hilt tightly. Around him lay scattered enemy corpses, silent as evidence of the slaughter. He staggered to his feet, eyes gazing distantly toward the blazing horizon. From behind, a faint call sounded. A white-haired girl stepped out of the shadows, trembling as she held a cracked communication device. The male lead turned around and recognized an old acquaintance, the one who had once betrayed him. They looked at each other in silence. The atmosphere was thick with caution and unhealed wounds. The girl stepped closer, removing her hood. Her face was covered with bruises and dried blood. She handed him the communication device, softly saying, "They are still alive." Those words made his eyes light up. The male lead clenched his fist tightly, turning toward the distant ruins. Without hesitation, he strode forward. The next journey was not only for himself, but also for those still waiting. Tiha gritted his teeth against the pain, but his eyes showed no sign of retreat. He gripped the pair of twin swords tightly, preparing to counterattack in a perilous situation. Guangsugu unleashed a storm-like slash, his fierce power shattering the surrounding space. Tiha maintained his defense, refusing to step back. Four Kings' true slash, the ultimate technique, was unleashed, but Tiha was prepared just as the northern martial king had calculated. Tiha tensed and spun, activating the granted shield, the only thing capable of neutralizing the destructive strike before him. Guangsugu's entire body blazed with crimson demonic energy, his momentum soaring to its peak. The battle was truly beginning now. Demonic energy surged around Guangsugu's fist. He clenched his hand tightly, ready to deliver a finishing blow full of killing intent. A punch exploded like a meteor crashing down. Guangsugu closed in, striking Tiha directly with destructive force. The terrible explosion swept everything around. Dust and sand filled the air. Tiha's figure was thrown back amid the shockwave. Amid the destructive whirlwind, an old man with silver hair appeared, frowning slightly. He remained unshaken by the sweeping aftershocks. The northern martial king calmly stepped out of the smoke. Behind him, Tiha gasped for breath, his eyes full of astonishment and gratitude. Guangsugu clenched his hand, concentrating his internal energy into his palm. Though the battle paused, his gaze remained sharp as a blade. Tiha rushed forward to block, shouting harshly, "Elder Yang, he belongs to me." But the northern martial king coldly replied, "The life of the second young master does not belong to him alone." The northern martial king emphasized each word, affirming that the honor of the tranquil cloud society must not be stained. Tiha was shocked to see that a single block had caused the elder's hand to bleed. Dark purple demonic energy swirled around the northern martial king. He solemnly declared he would personally handle everything here and take full responsibility. Guangsugu watched cautiously, cold sweat dripping from his forehead. Though confident, he knew clearly, against a great master he had no chance of winning. Guangsugu quickly calculated. If he could find an opening in his opponent's defense, he would seize the chance to counterattack. The northern martial king charged forward with surging momentum. Guangsugu immediately took a defensive stance but could not hide his confusion. Guangsugu feigned a mocking laugh, taunting, "Really? An old man joining the kids' game?" Tiha gritted his teeth, clearly feeling the oppressive aura from the demonic energy. Before he could react, the battle turned. Guangsugu suddenly unleashed a thunderous punch, nearly blowing the northern martial king's head apart. A bold and cunning move. The old man gathered his energy, rushing forward like a purple lightning bolt, his eyes flashing with cold, killing intent. He clenched his fist tightly, purple energy surging, ready to deliver a fatal strike. The young man leaned aside to dodge, a confident smile revealing itself amid the storm. In that brief moment, his gaze turned toward the figure behind, the true target from the start. "It's you!" The punch exploded amid blood and horror, ending a perfect deception. In the silent night, a branch gently swayed under the cold blue moonlight, signaling the approaching moment of change. An old man with silver hair rushed forward in anger, his eyes full of murderous intent, as if about to unleash his fury on someone. A strong young woman suddenly appeared, tightly holding the panicked young man, shouting to stop the violent act. She grabbed his hand, squeezing so hard that bones creaked, challenging the old man standing opposite. "Let's see how much they value you, sir." The old man's eyes were cold as frost, his voice deep and hoarse. "You bastard! Do you still hope to survive this?" Hwa Yoon continued to threaten. "There are 18 more." At the hostage's painful scream, the old man trembled. "You are truly cruel. What do you want me to do with you?" Hwa Yoon spoke coldly. "You just need to answer. If you don't want to see more broken bones, remember this well." The remaining enemy shouted in panic. "Give me Jio Hayuk, today I will spare your life." Hwa Yoon smiled contemptuously. "How foolish." He squeezed tighter, his eyes resolute. "Even if I let you go, you might still kill Hayuk. I'm not that stupid." The blue-haired young man tightened his opponent's fingers, smiling coldly. He calmly declared, if things continued, both he and Jechenhyuk would die. The restrained man trembled when hearing the name Sa Gongja. Meanwhile, the young man mocked him for once advising others not to live cowardly, yet now begging pitifully. The young man leaned close, whispering in his ear with a terrifying smile spreading. "I will let you live," he said, causing the other to startle suspiciously. A sudden stab pierced through the chest. He screamed in pain, blood gushing out. The young man coldly asked, "Why don't you beg old Yang for mercy?" Old Yang stood there, hands clenched tightly, eyes full of rage. The young man's voice rang out like a final blow. "Haven't you decided yet?" The old man trembled, letting out a desperate cry. I don't know." Sa Gongja made a cruel condition. Either destroy the Danshin or watch Jechenhyuk slowly die by his own hand. He slowly squeezed the hostage's neck, forcing Elder Yang to choose between lifelong martial arts and the life of the second young master. With an evil smile still on his lips, Sa Gongja coldly declared, "Let's see which is more valuable." Elder Yang stood motionless, his whole body trembling before the cruel choice imposed by the other. Seeing the hesitation, Sa Gongja's eyes flashed, realizing the balance was tipping clearly in his favor. Elder Yang turned his back and walked away, realizing his actions had deepened the rift between Jechenhyuk and Sa Gongja. Sa Gongja smiled faintly. In his heart, only one thing was clear: survival. Dawn was approaching. Elder Yang was shocked when someone called his name. He looked up toward the rising sun. A painful scream echoed. Elder Yang poured all his strength into launching a final technique in desperation. A blazing red swept across the sky, signaling the decisive moment, where light and blood became one. An explosion erupted fiercely in the courtyard, two opposing forces clashing and shaking the entire space. From the rooftop under the moonlight, a new figure appeared. The sword gleamed with purple energy. He was Elder O Yangmangsan, wielding the power of a martial law enforcer. Jechenhyuk frowned and stepped forward, his cold gaze warning. "Elder O Yangmangsan, you are not allowed to enter the inner palace at night without permission." O Yangmangsan shouted, charging forward and swinging his sword angrily. "Is this the time to talk about rules? Look at that guy, Sa Gongja." Jechenhyuk stopped him, speaking softly but with a cold tone. "It's just child's play, Elder Yang. Don't make a big deal out of it. Gongja held Hyuk tightly, forcing him to face the truth. Hyuk reluctantly accepted the deal, his heart full of resentment. The law enforcer emphasized the 1,000-year rule of the demon sect. The strong have the right to take everything from the weak. He urged Gongja to choose his reward. An elder strongly opposed, arguing that Gongja was nameless and unworthy of recognition. But a voice rose, affirming, Gongja has a name. That name Gongja received from his mother. The law enforcer turned to Hyuk, demanding he accept defeat. Hyuk was stunned, unable to refute. His honor was defeated before the determined gaze and the name Gongja cherished since childhood. Hwaeun faced the serious gaze, officially named before all. He was asked, as the strong one, what does he want to take from Hyuk? Those words ignited Elder Yang's fury. He charged forward with blazing, murderous intent, unable to accept such an insult. But before he could act, the cold sword of North Martial Lord blocked him, leaving Elder Yang stunned. North Martial Lord affirmed without hesitation, fine, his life is an option. Elder Yang angrily questioned in a harsh tone, but faced with North Martial Lord's calm challenge, he could only scream in helplessness. The Taeyang Palace law envoy coldly declared his role was to uphold the law, not to be drawn into meaningless disputes. Hyuk collapsed, trembling hands, eyes filled with despair as he was humiliated like a lowly insect. Hwaeun looked down at him, asking sharply, "Do you want to live?" causing Hyuk to utter a bitter protest. Hwaeun considered his options. Killing him would be a clean end, but the power behind Hyuk made him hesitate. He paused, leaving the decision to the elders. Though holding life and death in his hands, Hwaeun kept a cool head amid the power struggle. Hwaeun coldly observed everything, his mind clear on the answer. Everything obeyed the will of the strongest present. He understood from the start, but still appeared. North Martial Lord had long chosen to act as the arbiter of this confrontation. Hwaeun smiled faintly, withdrawing his momentum. Though able to finish it, this time he chose mercy, at least for now. Surprise spread among everyone. Elder Yang, Hyuk, and even bystanders did not expect that outcome. Wasting no time, Hwaeun struck a fatal blow to Hyuk's chest, ending with blood and screams. Hwaeun pointed and declared he would settle everything this way. Hyuk knelt trembling, facing the cold eyes of North Martial Lord and the approving silver-haired elder. North Martial Lord raised his hand to unleash power, a swirling aura rising to dominate the space, preparing to declare the final verdict of this confrontation. North Martial King coldly ordered, "O Yangmongson, return to the Silent Cloud Assembly." He also warned that the nighttime palace intrusion would be dealt with later. He declared no pursuit of responsibility for the fight between Hwaeun and Hyuk, as the loser had accepted the outcome. Hyuk looked up, bitterly calling Hwaeun's name. Hyuk slapped O Yangmongson's shoulder, laughing provocatively. "That low woman named you. Will you dare repeat that in front of everyone tomorrow?" Hyuk was defeated. North Martial Lord ordered Elder Yangmongson to return to Silent Cloud Assembly, promising to handle the nighttime intrusion later. He declared the duel between Hwaeun and Hyuk would not be pursued according to the loser's will, while Hyuk coldly repeated Hwaeun's name with hidden meaning. Hyuk slapped Elder Yang's shoulder, mocking Hwaeun as one given a lowly name by a woman, provoking him to dare mention it again at tomorrow's naming ceremony. North Martial Lord responded thoughtfully with cold eyes that his standards had never changed. As the master and disciple departed, North Martial Lord congratulated Hwaeun and advised him to survive tomorrow, for all must obey the laws of the sun, then swiftly vanished in majestic light. Hwaeun was stunned by the reminder of the law of the sun, admitting to himself that he was no longer the northern general. In the quiet late night, Hwaeun mocked himself as the disgrace of the Taeyang Divine Palace, then told himself to sleep peacefully without dreams. As Hwaeun turned his back and left, shadows silently followed from the darkness, murderous intent spreading through the night. Dawn broke, flocks of birds spread their wings across the clear sky, signaling the start of a new day. In the green forest, two soldiers walked and talked. One confirmed that the palace lord himself had ordered Hwa Yoon to return to his old residence, which had once endured every cold raindrop as a bitter welcome. Two men walked along a quiet corridor, discussing that if Hwa Yoon was truly granted a name at tomorrow's naming ceremony, the current situation might change. The long-haired noble laughed mockingly, saying it would be unreasonable if he had to pay out of pocket, but he accepted it because the old man had ordered it. A scream rang out when a body was discovered. It was the corpse of an assassin. The speaker noted that killers often returned to the scene. Hwa Yoon sat on the assassin's body, coldly looking at the two before him, and asked, "Is it you?" The long-haired noble laughed loudly, denying responsibility and mocking that he was neither Sa Gongja nor the second young master, but called himself the third young master Jechenhin, Hwa Yoon's older brother. Hwa Yoon was stunned, his eyes confused upon hearing the name of the man before him, with only one question echoing in his mind. Who is he? The horse carriage moved towards Bangwa Songfang in the morning sunlight. Someone reminded that in the upcoming ceremony, just nodding and saying, "Yes, yes, yes," was enough, no need to worry too much. The escort further explained that upon receiving the official name, he would be granted financial support from the Sun Palace, which could be used to repair Chilyagak and buy new clothes or weapons. The blue-haired boy wearing ceremonial clothes with a cold face listened uninterestedly to the rambling words of his companion. In his mind, he only thought, "He keeps talking endlessly." The other suddenly recalled an old matter, turning around with a bright smile. "Have you heard about Elder Yang of the Quiet Cloud Society and the trouble I encountered?" The young man slightly nodded, his eyes calm as he replied, "I just heard about it." Jechenhin was stunned by Hwa Yoon's unexpectedly straightforward reaction, his eyes briefly showing caution. He quickly regained a fake smile and continued the conversation in a friendly tone full of implications. Hwa Yoon no longer endured it. His icy gaze showed he had seen through the threatening implication in those words. Jechenhin smiled, mentioning the stone as if casually, but every word was aimed directly at Hwa Yoon's past. Behind his smile, a fierce spirit tiger appeared, surrounded by killing intent. The accusation had officially been launched. Hwa Yoon pondered in silence, admitting this situation was more complicated than previous ambushes. The carriage continued rolling through the mountainous scenery, and Hwa Yoon suddenly demanded a condition in return for his cooperation. Jechenhin smiled calmly, suggesting repairing Chilyagak as a form of fair exchange. But Hwa Yoon shook his head, smiling, requesting something else. A story, that was all he wanted to hear. Jechenhin turned his head, half smiling and half surprised, replying, "About everything, is that fair?" Hwa Yoon silently thought that perhaps he would have to use another way to find the real answer. He suddenly changed his attitude, patting his older brother strongly, playing the role of a cute younger brother. "You can count on me." Jechenhin was surprised by that trick, but still laughed heartily at his younger brother's adorable flip. Hwa Yoon continued to apply pressure, half joking, half serious, to force Jechenhin into answering. Jechenhin laughed, agreeing to play by his younger brother's rules, ready to answer anything Hwa Yoon wanted to know. Immediately, a shout rang out outside, "Stop the carriage." The eldest brother turned his head, his face showing clear suspicion. The guards immediately scattered in 4 directions, surrounding the area as a pre-prepared response. Hwa Yoon frowned. He quickly realized this was no coincidence, a trap was being set. He coldly confirmed his identity. "Hwa Yoon, that is my name." The words made the other person momentarily stunned. Upon hearing the name, the older brother asked Hwa Yoon if it was given by their mother. Hwa Yoon hesitated, feeling confused inside. Hwa Yoon remained silent, thinking. He told himself that whenever his name was mentioned, people always talked about their mother. He needed to find a more skillful way to extract information. The older brother wondered further, asking if anyone else knew Hwa Yoon's name. If not, today he could completely receive a new name. In Hwa Yoon's mind appeared a series of faces. Ji Chen-woo, Ji Chen-hyuk, Elder O, Lawyer Seanchin, and even Ma Yui, the name giver. Everyone already knew, he sighed. I can't hide it anymore. The older brother had to explain. The naming ceremony was only for the direct bloodline of the palace lord. It was a way to announce identity and affirm power, usually held at age 10. But Hwa Yoon's case was different. Hwa Yoon looked straight ahead, his voice full of sorrow. He was the son of an unknown woman named Sua, someone abandoned by both the palace and his father for a long, endless 5 years. A palace guard revealed the truth. Before the naming ceremony, everyone had a childhood name. Even the third young master was once called Dan Wukayung. The guard countered, the issue was not the name. Hwa Yoon had used that identity to invoke the law of supreme power, certified by Yulbeop Jeonju. He would not let it go. That identity cannot be taken lightly. In his heart, Hwa Yoon suspected the other. He acted naive but knew too much. Could there be a spy in the Silent Cloud Society? Recalling the feeling when shaking hands, Hwa Yoon connected all the signs. Dan Wukyeong, the strong aura, and the recently revealed information. If he so easily exposed so many secrets in front of me, then who really is he? Before Hwa Yoon could react, the other sternly warned. The naming ceremony would take place right in the main hall with the presence of the 3 Sun Lords. If Yoon refused to accept the name before them and said he already had one, the consequences would be unpredictable. He began to doubt the true intention behind it. The man admitted no one could predict the actions of the Sun Lords, only that they hated having their authority challenged. Chinwoo, Chinhyuk, or even the Quiet Cloud Society, none would come forward to protect Yoon. On the contrary, this was an opportunity for them to eliminate him. Yoon smiled lightly, a bitter question arising in his mind. If he wanted to survive, should he rely on a third force? The long-haired man smiled meaningfully, affirming to Hwa Yoon that the third force he needed was them. He continued explaining that their organization was different from Black Knight, the Orthodox sect, or local factions, a newly emerging neutral power amid the chaotic situation. When asked for their identity, he casually revealed his strangely shining eyes and declared the organization's name as Herong Trading Co. They declared they would protect Hwa Yoon in the upcoming dangerous situation, but in return, he would have to pay a price with an unspecified condition. In the strange, turbulent space, Hwa Yoon gently but sharply rebutted. If he had to be a subordinate, wouldn't that other person be his younger brother? Hwa Yoon was surprised by the proposal to lead him through the monster land. The other party offered a dangerous choice as a challenge. The long-haired young man smiled confidently, summoning a fiery serpent tiger spirit beast, forcing Hwa Yoon to give a decisive answer. The mysterious creature coiled around his hand, its eyes blazing. The invitation seemed like an order. Younger brother, make your choice. Hwa Yoon was not afraid. With determined eyes, he stepped into the swirling purple aura, facing the pressure without flinching. When the other kneeled to thank him, Hwa Yoon calmly revealed. He was the one who shattered the dark illusion of Dan Jumseong, his grandfather. Hwa Yoon smiled. Memories from his previous life were even more painful than the illusion created by the opponent. The figure behind observed silently, seemingly surprised by his calm attitude. The polite man withdrew with a familiar smile, reminding Hwa Yoon to think carefully before deciding. The final words sounded like a warning. The upcoming ceremony could be where he received his name, or where he was executed. Finally, the group set off from the palace, heading to the naming ceremony, where all schemes would begin to reveal themselves. At the main hall, the 3 Sun Lords were seated, their authority overwhelming, and a solemn atmosphere spreading throughout the great hall. The officials shouted in unison, "Vi letter 1E1N Duong, Tin Quang and GUY letter 1EC7 T Hoa," words of reverent praise. The palace lord declared the opening of the ceremony. Today's candidate, the 4th young master Nameless, stepped forward. In front of the majestic main gate, a horse carriage stopped. A figure stood silently under the blazing sky, as if preparing to enter a great event. A sharp voice shouted from the guard. The escort team immediately stopped. No one dared to disobey. The young man in blue stepped out, smiling politely. He asked, "Who made you wait like this while the naming ceremony is underway?" From the front hall, a silver-haired man parted the way. With cold eyes, he replied, "Surely not me." "Right, third prince." The third prince turned his head, his gaze calm. "Then, shall we go this way?" The silent atmosphere began to stir again. Lord Mai solemnly declared, "I am talking about Hwaeun, my younger brother." His tone asserted authority. Hwaeun stood behind the door, hearing every word clearly, inwardly smirking faintly. Calling him younger brother, truly a meaningless power game. The third prince reminded Lord Mai of the ceremonial rules. The one being named must be escorted by the previous title holder. He voluntarily led Hwaeun onto the stage. Lord Mai suspiciously retorted, "Do you intend to take them to disgrace them in the hall? Since when have you acted so recklessly?" The third prince kept a polite smile, gently recalling their brotherhood and the invitation from the Haryong Trade Guild before, a statement both threatening and probing. Lord Mai was not courteous at all, bluntly denying any connection with the third prince's faction and refusing to bear the consequences of their actions. A call cut through the tense air, Elder Mai, carrying urgency from the upper hall. Hwaeun briefly doubted upon recognizing the tense relationship between the two factions, but quickly decided to continue the journey. Hwaeun took the ceremonial hat, ready to step up, causing both the third prince and Lord Mai to show surprise. The third prince remained silent, his cold eyes following Hwaeun's steps, emotions rising unpredictably within. On the way, the third prince quietly told Hwaeun to remember, besides him, he had no one else. Hwaeun nodded, responding with a gentle smile. Elder Mai placed the hat on Hwaeun's head, praising his neat appearance. Hwaeun tilted his head in thanks, inwardly suspicious of Elder Mai's sudden appearance. Elder Mai revealed, "This morning, the Northern Martial Sovereign came and recounted the battle where Hwaeun defeated a prince witnessed by Elder Yang." As he stepped onto the stairs, Elder Mai could not hide his surprise at fourth prince's victory, someone who had never learned martial arts. Hwaeun only smiled lightly, modestly crediting his master. Elder Mai glanced at him, mocking Hwaeun's smooth talk, and warned not to use sweet words if his lips were not yet wet with genuine flattery. Elder Mai frowned in thought. Could fourth prince have secretly trained in martial arts? He immediately dismissed that possibility. If he had martial skills, he would not have been suppressed helplessly by the heavenly Tao. A thought flashed in his mind. Could it be the power of the solar heart, the legacy of the eternal Lord? Hwaeun confirmed he did not need the life and death diagram to control it. Lord Mai praised Hwaeun's potential but warned, today he must survive, as the factions of Second Prince and Jingyun sect would certainly not stand by. Another person smiled cunningly. He analyzed, the Tianwu sect might act hastily, but the Black Wolf Pavilion was lazy and would not act soon. A member of the third prince's faction hinted subtly, but he smiled calmly, revealing no weakness. Elder Mai warned Hwaeun to be cautious of the third prince's gaze and words, a sweet snake full of deadly poison. Elder Mai frankly spoke about the ambiguity and uncertainty of the palace lord, who truly holds the balance in today's situation. The sky was gloomy, wind rising. Elder Mai looked up and gave one final instruction. Everything depends on the palace lord. Hwaeun's survival now depends on whether he can impress the palace lord. The third prince silently observed from afar, his suspicious eyes following Mu Myung after a secret conversation with Jang Myung. Before the just-opened ceremonial gate, the third prince smiled and invited Mu Myung to enter the main hall, hiding his true intentions. A resounding shout echoed throughout the hall, "A ray of heavenly sun! A ray of moonlight night!" Two princes stepped in under the gaze of the court officials. The ceremony master loudly called out the title. The one receiving the rank today, fourth Prince Mu Myung, stepped forward. In a corner of the hall, a silent enemy watched. He believed Master Jang Myung had a plan to help him turn the tide. Mu Myung entered the great hall under stern gazes. He was unaware of what schemes had been revealed in the recent conversation between Master and Palace Lord. Standing before the wide-open great door, the second prince smiled and led the way. The investiture ceremony was beginning, all eyes focused on the fourth prince. The one son of heaven, the moonlight night. The proclamation echoed through the great hall, welcoming the two main figures into the ranks of officials. The one receiving the title today, fourth Prince Mu Myung, step forth. A solemn voice rose. Mu Myung lifted his head and advanced with a calm expression. On the high throne, Palace Lord Ji Gangsang radiated fiery aura. Mu Myung's eyes suddenly flashed. He holds the final key, truly worthy of being a great figure of H-Waking. Ji Gangsang solemnly conferred the new title on the fourth prince, Ji Chenmail, Heavenly Destruction. All the ministers bowed simultaneously, shouting the prince's new title in a solemn atmosphere. Ji Chenmail bowed his head, expression silent, as if swallowing the heavy responsibility just bestowed. Ji Gangsang's cold gaze looked down, questioning, "Do you object?" Chenmail replied briefly, "Yes." The ministers were startled in surprise. One asked, "Do you want a different name?" Sun Palace Lord Ji Gangsang solemnly bestowed a new name on the fourth prince, Ji Chenmail, Heavenly Destruction. The court officials all knelt and shouted the one sun and moonlight radiance, congratulating the new title. The fourth prince bowed silently, his eyes hiding complex feelings behind the new title. Ji Gangsang asked sternly if there was any objection. The fourth prince candidly answered, "Yes." Silence enveloped the court. A sudden official spoke, "Do you want another name?" stirring political undercurrents. In the majestic hall, all civil and military officials bowed quietly as H-Waeun faced Palace Lord Ji Gangsang, who raised his hand in signal. Ji Gangsang coldly recalled past crimes. One who once tried to kill his own bloodline would surely not hesitate to do so again. H-Waeun lifted his head, eyes resolute. He declared, "In the name of the war god, by the title General of Northern Heaven, that is my true name." Ji Gangsang paused, muttering his name unconsciously. H-Waeun, son of Sua. His eyes briefly changed. From behind, a voice rose. "Jiang Sanhu, head of Jingyun sect, I have something to say." The atmosphere suddenly shifted. Jiang Sanhu stood up, affirming that H-Waeun was not a childish nickname, but a concealment of identity. He loudly accused H-Waeun of hiding his real name before the naming ceremony and demanded immediate execution. Ji Gangsang turned and whispered to H-Waeun that Jiang Sanhu had underestimated him from the start. An elder was startled and asked, "You defeated Ji Chenhayuk?" The person beside answered firmly, "Yes." Upon hearing that H-Waeun also broke Yang Mongshan's arm, Ji Gangsang sneered, "So this is the price to destroy the Sun altar." H-Waeun slightly smiled, his eyes cold, hinting that Ji Chenwu's power only exists thanks to the favor of others. H-Waeun's face tensed as Ji Chenwu decisively ordered, "Choose." A blazing red fire engulfed Ji Chenwu as he pushed H-Waeun into a choice. Become Ji Chenmail and settle, or continue as H-Waeun walking a thorny path. A mysterious figure rushed into the main hall at terrifying speed, astonished by the superhuman power manifesting. The magical flames erupted, tearing space apart, swirling around Ji Chenwu, a realm only fewer than 20 people in the world have ever reached. A fierce spiritual energy wave swept through, causing the officials below to panic and collapse, not daring to look up directly. The senior elders also startled and rose abruptly, their eyes heavy with fear at H-Waeun's unleashed aura. Amid the chaotic light, H-Waeun declared loudly, "Joy, sorrow, hatred, happiness, or pain, I give them all their names." The palace lord's face flickered with shock as H-Waeun's aura far exceeded expectations, revealing an irreversible choice. H-Waeun roared, throwing a challenging punch. The blazing red energy shattered the distance between him and the palace lord in a life-or-death moment. H-Waeun clenched his jaw, his mind wavering. He knew he could step back and bow, but that would mean denying himself. Amid the blazing red aura, H-Waeun shouted firmly, "Past, present, or future, I am still H-Waeun." That declaration shook the entire great hall. H-Waeun clenched his fists tightly, struggling within. He could bow his head, he could retreat, but if he gave up on himself, everything would become meaningless. Amidst the blazing radiance, H-Waeun declared firmly, whether past, present, or future, he remains himself. His name is H-Waeun. A burst of energy exploded from H-Waeun's chest, dyeing the hall red. The fire of will combined with spiritual strength made everyone's hearts race wildly. The great ministers could not hide their fear. Before them stood a completely different H-Waeun, standing tall like an unquenchable flame. The enemy squinted, trying to stay calm as Huan approached, surrounded by fiery aura, pressure weighing heavily over the hall. Jichen remained silent, his cold gaze fixed on Huan without a word. Finally, he turned and consented. If this is your choice, then so be it. The Emperor's proclamation echoed through the hall. From this moment on, his name is Huan. Along with the new name, the status of Fourth Prince was revoked on the spot, a decision no one anticipated. The Emperor decreed, having refused the bestowed glory, Huan must prove himself through his own actions. Master Jiangxin bowed to accept the order when Palace Lord called his name in the solemn atmosphere. Palace Lord mentioned the disaster ravaging the coastal region of the Silent Cloud sect, the reason they missed the previous meeting with the Heavenly Dragon Alliance. Huan was called by name and assigned as special commander for the campaign in the South Sea region. Palace Lord tasked him to lead the journey to Songju to eliminate the blood-clad demon causing havoc in Dongbang town. Palace Lord refused the request to execute Huan, instead ordering royal physician Mai to treat Jiangxin's nephew, Ji Chenhyuk, earning Jiangxin's deep gratitude. Palace Lord emphasized that the land where the blood medicine demon appeared originally belonged to the Silent Cloud sect and requested Jiangxin to support Special Envoy Huan. Jiangxin nodded, accepting the mission to escort the Special Envoy with a serious expression. "It is my honor." Palace Lord called royal physician Mai forward and gave an additional important order for the journey. Royal physician Mai accepted the order, pledging to accompany Huan as medical escort. Questions surged within Huan's heart. He sensed this mission held deeper meaning beyond words, perhaps something only visible when faced personally. The sect leader raised his hand to declare the end of the naming ceremony. In brilliant light, his voice echoed throughout the hall. "All shall follow the law of the sun." The naming ceremony officially concluded. The entire hall shouted in unison, "Follow the law of the sun," the echo filling the solemn atmosphere. Night fell. Outside the palace, a voice broke the silence. "So you had spoken with the sect leader beforehand?" The Grand Matriarch packed her belongings and answered decisively, "I must protect my only disciple from death." Huan looked up and asked, "About needing to see with my own eyes, what do you really mean?" The Grand Matriarch paused at the question. For a moment, his eyes grew distant, as if lost in thoughts he could not express. The Grand Master turned his back and walked away, indicating he would teach Huan the life and death 8 trigrams technique, a secret art passed down in the sect. When Huan asked who knew this secret technique, the Grand Master replied only 4 people: himself, Huan, the sect leader, and North Yu Venerable. The Grand Master raised 2 fingers, implying only 2 people could be suspects, causing Huan to nod in understanding. Huan thought to himself that he must be wary of those 2, and understood that his master had reasons for not revealing the truth. The Grand Master glanced at his disciple and noticed Huan had packed and was ready to depart, even without being directly asked. The master looked at his disciple with a contemplative gaze and uttered a cryptic sentence. The young boy responded with a light smile, carrying a hint of self-mockery about his own poverty. Old memories resurfaced in Huan's mind, the days of fierce battles with iron armor, long spears, and sharp swords. Now all that remains are relics in the royal treasure. Huan slightly startled upon hearing his master's call. His eyes shone with respect and readiness to receive further teachings. His master asked sternly about Huan's impression of the sect leader today. When Huan asked back, he emphasized, "The sect leader is a high master who has reached the flower realm, a state all martial artists aspire to." When his master said no one could remain calm before the aura of such a master, Huan suddenly burst into a bright smile. He confidently retorted, "I stayed calm, did I?" A senior official proposed sending someone to cooperate with the expedition commander to investigate the blood medicine land. The young man silently accepted the mission. The elder turned back and respectfully replied, "It is my honor." He ordered royal physician Mai to step forward before the hall, making the atmosphere solemn. Royal physician Mai accepted the order and would accompany the expedition commander on the perilous journey ahead. The young man appeared hesitant but responded with determination. "I must see it with my own eyes." Huan silently vowed to train seriously when he saw Physician Mai's dedicated teaching, then proactively asked about the life and death formation. Physician Mai was silent, his gaze serious when hearing Huan mention that supreme secret technique. He explained sternly that the life and death formation was not only physically grueling but far beyond evil arts, a pinnacle of strange techniques. A candle was lit, its flickering flame in the darkness signaling the start of a special ritual. Physician Mai pointed to the candle and softly said, "The greatest challenge is this." Huan was stunned, his eyes shaken. Physician Mai revealed the secret of the life and death formation, a martial art at the extreme limit, walking the line between life and death, praised by the first ancestor as the essence of all combat principles. Huan was amazed to hear it resembled the divine war Huishin, and wondered how a person could survive walking between life and death. Before the bizarre red light, Huan realized his teacher's intention. He must swallow that to cultivate, a challenge worthy of the title 5-star genius. Huan hesitated and asked what if he refused, and received a chilling answer. Ancient masters once cut open their chests to insert it. His eyes froze on that strange object. Physician Mai corrected him. It was not a tangible object, but a secret technique weaving thought into the life and death meridians, opening an unprecedented cultivation path. Physician Mai sternly asked Huan about the worldly sins. The young man naively replied he thought they were ordinary sins. Mai continued explaining that these sins originated from an ancient cursed bloodline, the crystallization of all evil thoughts in the world, called Chaos Life. Before Huan lay the Chaos Life pill, Mai affirmed that swallowing it would blur the boundary between life and death, a step toward the ultimate secret technique. Huan hesitated and asked what if he did not swallow it. Mai replied that in ancient times, some had cut open their chests to insert it. Huan's face showed clear astonishment. Mai quickly reassured that the Chaos Life pill was not a physical object, but a secret skill transmitted into acupoints, where life and death merge through thought. Huan unexpectedly swallowed the entire pill, leaving Physician Mai stunned. He simply replied, "You said I had to eat it." Physician Mai angrily covered Huan's mouth, shouting that it should be taken slowly, not all at once like that. His expression grew more alarmed as he yelled, "It's poison!" He feared Huan would lose his mind instantly. Contrary to concern, Huan calmly waved his hand to activate his blood energy. He confirmed he showed no abnormal signs. Physician Mai inquired further, but Huan only smiled lightly, saying the strange feeling had quickly faded. Physician Mai was stunned by the unusual reaction. The young boy carrying the Sun core from the divine sun and moon star lineage seemed to have resolved the chaos that others could not endure. He smiled softly and gently replied, "Although the result was unexpected, good is still good." Physician Mai probed, did he feel the energy of Chaos Life? Huan confirmed, feeling as if he had an extra arm. Inside him echoed old memories, a past life once destroyed by this energy's madness, now able to control it. Faced with such natural acceptance, Physician Mai hesitated. This boy understood the life and death formation even without guidance. Huan smiled and gently responded with familiar confidence. Physician Mai watched him leave, silently marveling. Could this be how the power of the stars awakens? At Jangjeong Fortress, Elder Huan received an imperial summons to discuss the spring ceremony. While Huan pondered the intentions behind the ritual, a servant confirmed he had not heard the details clearly. Huan ordered him to withdraw, eyes still fixed on the star chart. Elder Hachen Sing of Hanchun suddenly was shocked, his gaze shaken as he looked up at the night sky. A dazzling beam tore through the night, a light that recalled terrifying memories in his mind. Chen Sing murmured, as if reliving a fateful moment. The day his master, the supreme predecessor of Hanchun, died after the prophetic peace ceremony. Blood dripped onto the astrological formation, evoking the fateful memory of the day Xian Huan, the devourer of all evil, descended. Amidst starlight and fresh blood, Elder He collapsed to his knees, uttering a plea to the Chaos God. Spitting blood, eyes horrified, Elder He choked out, Is the world still in chaos and you have returned? From the night sky, the war god constellation blazed brightly, a sign heralding the return of the war god who will overturn the world's fate. The carriage quietly rolled through the city gate in the twilight, carrying a young man imbued with the chaotic energy newly absorbed from the chaos Musangden last night. The young man with sharp eyes assessed the opponent's strength, someone only at the first rank, possibly even second or third rank. He lightly blamed the opponent for slowing down their morning journey, his voice frank and straightforward. Feeling annoyed inside, he glanced at the stranger accompanying them, wondering why that person joined this trip. The stranger laughed and explained he came to check on the young master's situation under the order of the sect leader, despite being treated like a minor lord. He continued to hint that the young master's arm had been injured, and did not forget to remind that the old man's disciple was truly ruthless. The young man forced a smile, saying it was just a minor injury, but the old man snapped, the arm was completely shattered. The man in red laughed coldly, asserting that if he had not intervened, just with words, the young master would have crippled Elder Yang's martial arts. He nodded innocently, smiling naively as he recalled, Elder Yang's right arm was indeed smashed. The man nodded to confirm the injury had been treated. All major joints had been reset. Recovery was going quite well. The red-clad martial artist stared into the void, unable to hide his astonishment. The powers Huan displayed far exceeded the limits of an ordinary youth. When introduced as Huan's second master, he was startled and refuted. Despite expectations, he never intended to take Huan as a disciple. The unexpected declaration made the Northern Martial Order leader pause. He had never agreed to accept Huan as a disciple. Teased as petty, the Northern Martial Order leader sneered coldly, immediately responding with the words that annoyed him most. The silver-haired old man continued to mock, saying Huan looked at him with innocent admiration. Huan was puzzled and didn't understand, while the old man sighed, lamenting that the boy had become too glib after only a few days of training. Trying to save face, the old man called it intelligence, but still found it hard to believe that Yang Mongson was defeated by the boy's words. Huan seriously questioned the true identity of the Northern Martial Order leader, receiving only one answer: "That is a secret." He silently observed Huan, wondering if he could be considered an insider. Huan humorously interjected in the conversation, but behind his smile, he realized this mission was not simple. It involved a blood-stained criminal being hunted. Huan was astonished to hear that Guangryong Jiako, a powerful northern clan, had begun to take action. The story of the blood feud between Guangryong Jiako and the Makwun Society arose. Ilung once cruelly severed the hand of Makwun's leader, Jang Sanhu. The Makwun Society dominated Namhe, rising to power thanks to Dongbong Fortress. But to maintain balance, they had to accept one condition. The Sun God Altar, a legendary treasure, was the only reason Guangryong Jiako could not ignite a great war. Guangryong Jiako granted access to the Sun God Altar to the alliance of Heavenly Dragon and 10 Stars Orthodox, in exchange for a fragile truce with Makwun. The old man in yellow was silent, unable to hide his surprise upon hearing that the pact was broken, a sign that a major event was about to occur. Tiho explained. This time the visitor did not represent Guangryong Jiako, but was a member of Cross Stars, known as Little Dragon. All three were curious about the true identity of Little Dragon, a prestigious title for a top late-stage genius, a formidable figure not to be underestimated. The old man revealed, Little Dragon is a direct descendant of the previous clan head. For personal reasons, he will personally meet this person and does not want to disclose more. The carriage entered Songju under the blazing red evening light. Despite a broken relationship, Makwun was still forced to pretend to cooperate if the target was the notorious bloodthirsty one. A voice rang out decisively, bluntly rejecting any hope of cooperation. That will not happen. At the Songju gate, the group from the main hall was stopped. Although their identities were known, the guard passed down a clear order. No one from the main hall was to be admitted. Elder Ma Yui was angry at the stubbornness. However, the soldier firmly replied, "I have not seen the order." a tacit challenge to legitimacy. When asked what if the order really came, the gatekeeper calmly responded, "I will accept punishment." Affirming his determination, his name was mentioned, Elder Ma Yui. The young man stepped forward, placed his hand on Elder Ma Yui's shoulder, and smiled gently. "Let me handle this, okay?" A calm yet sly tone seemed to suggest a new solution. Just as the guard opened his mouth to object, he was suddenly struck by a punch from the black-haired young man, leaving everyone stunned. The punch struck like thunder, causing the guard to collapse instantly. No one could stop that lightning-fast reaction. The young man calmly withdrew his hand, while Elder Ma Yui stammered in panic, trying to justify the communication mishap. He casually suggested burning down the entire branch to send a warning to Makwun, which horrified Elder Ma Yui and made him suspect the boy was influenced by some drug. He chuckled lightly, saying it was just a joke, but Elder Ma Yui's expression showed no relief at all. Huiyun smiled leisurely after the punch, pretending nothing important had happened. Though he had abandoned his title, he still declared himself the fourth young master of the Sun sect. When reminded that he had renounced his title, Huiyun calmly replied that he had not received an official order yet, so he still retained that status. The two master and disciple left the Makwun branch, leaving the unconscious gatekeeper behind. Huiyun gently reminded, "I told you I was joking." Night fell and Huiyun intended to go out for some fresh air, but the old man spoke up, probing the disciple's unusual steps. Huiyun poured out his worries about having to train in the Valley of Life and Death. Though he had never left the Sun sect, now he faced an unpredictable challenge of unknown length. Huiyun muttered to himself while turning away, giving himself a reasonable excuse to stroll outside at night. Elder Mai stood behind, full of suspicion. Elder Mai handed Huiyun a small bag of money. He accepted it, surprised by the unexpected approval. Elder Mai gave serious advice. He knew well that the outside world was not peaceful and warned Huiyun to always be cautious. The moon rose high in the night sky. Huiyun reassured Elder Mai, saying he would only take a short night walk and then return. In another corner of the city, a blue-haired youth also stepped outside, sighing in the cool night breeze. Huiyun entered the bustling night market, ears hearing vendors' calls, eyes following the bright lanterns. In his mind echoed the warning, "Don't go into the back alley." But that back alley led straight to where Huiyun needed to go. He stopped, eyes fixed on the pitch-dark path ahead. He clenched his fist tightly as a familiar feeling surged back. Huiyun knew this place too well, a place filled with unforgettable memories. He slowly walked past the eaves and silent corridor, footsteps echoing in the quiet night. Stopping before a long, untouched door, Huiyun looked up at the flickering lantern above. A gentle breeze passed by, as if recalling a deeply buried past. Huiyun gently pushed open the door and stepped into a quiet room, lantern light casting patterns on the carved wooden door, signaling that night was deep. He paused before the closed frame, looked around, then told himself, this place had probably closed early for rest. An old fan seller bowed respectfully, his voice deep and reverent. Someone like the young master should not set foot here late at night. Huiyun smiled faintly, his eyes cold. Blood does not wait for the right moment to be spilled. The old man panicked and bowed his head, eyes cast downward. "Young master, is that blood? Yours?" Huiyun smiled and gently denied. It was neither his blood nor that of the old man. Looking up at the sky, Huiyun declared as if making a proclamation. He wanted to obtain the blood of the golden dragon. Those words not only changed the atmosphere, but also awakened a stranger in the shadows, someone who also knew of the golden dragon. From the darkness, a man with bright eyes stepped forward, his body trembling but his murderous aura still blazing fiercely. Huiyun silently observed. Though the claws had been retracted, the man still kept sharp fangs, a beast that had never retreated. The fourth prince faced the seasoned man, while shadowy figures with swords silently closed in from all four sides. The old man clenched his fists, his gaze solemn, bidding farewell with respect but harboring deadly intent. The fourth prince gave a faint smile and asked with hidden meaning, "You greeted me twice because you think I am about to die." The self-proclaimed name, Godikmea Yonemchen caused the old man's face to pale, his expression revealing undeniable shock. At that moment, an assassin lunged from the rooftop. The fourth prince was silent, his cold eyes tracking the impending deadly strike. Sensing something amiss, the old man turned his head to look up at the rooftop. From the darkness, black-clad assassins dove straight at Hwaeun's head. The battle had no way out. The assassin team in the shadows suddenly rushed forward, their momentum overwhelming like a night storm. The old man froze when he heard the mention of the bloodline of the Yellow Dragon, a signal long buried in the past. Poisonous rain fell like a barrage of bullets. The young man stepped lightly, gliding like the wind, astonishingly precise. Hwaeun counterattacked swiftly, the sword's light drawing a streak that cut through the killing aura, splitting the darkness. A red aura flared from his body. Hwaeun, carrying the awakened bloodline, unleashed a fierce counterattack like thunder. Hwaeun's chest blazed, a fiery red heart beating strongly with each breath, a sign of the bloodline's power awakening. Godikmea was stunned. He had faced countless masters, but only one had ever given him such a chilling feeling. He turned away, ordering the assassins, "Kill him!" The scene was filled with the scent of death, suffused with deadly intent. Hwaeun remained unshaken. He knew the signal alone was not enough. The locals would be endangered if the battle dragged on. Godikmea responded with contempt. He sensed no internal strength in Hwaeun, thinking he had only learned some trivial spells. Hwaeun calmly stood in the encirclement while the assassins charged with fierce killing intent. Godikmea coldly declared, "Whatever it is, it's useless against them." Hwaeun realized the attack formation was a basic array, but that was exactly the opportunity he had been waiting for. Red flames erupted around Hwaeun as he unleashed the supreme secret technique passed down in Hwajung, the ultimate skill Hwashin Deramu, Byokrashin Hwangriu. His hands formed seals, gathering energy and focus, releasing a fierce blaze as if to burn everything to ashes. Godikmea was shaken witnessing this scene, his face pale as he exclaimed, "Impossible!" Hwaeun concentrated power into both hands, condensing intense fire energy, causing the surrounding assassins to step back cautiously. He summoned brilliant flames and roared, "O power of the sun, appear!" The entire arena lit up. Hwaeun, with an ancient aura, shouted loudly, "I am the war god of Namchen." The light scorched everything, forcing Godikmea to squint in horror at the unprecedented power. Completely overwhelmed, Godikmea's voice trembled as Hwaeun asked, "Now do you want to talk?" The two now sat together drinking tea. Godikmea candidly inquired about the young man's condition after the fierce battle. The young man chuckled lightly, replying with sarcasm while explaining that exceeding limits in martial arts usually results in serious consequences. He clenched his fist tightly, the light from his yang heart still blazing, affirming he would soon recover and use it to pursue higher goals. Godikmea narrowed his eyes, observing, then solemnly asked the real reason the young man sought him out in the dead of night. The young man was silent, inwardly acknowledging that the other must have suspected his true identity related to the war god, but now was not the time to reveal it. Hwaeun could not disclose that he was the war god. With a cold gaze, he concealed this important secret for both their sakes. Hwaeun frankly expressed his desire to hear about Manhwa Yun's past, the legendary war god who once shook the world. Godikmea understood well that Hwaeun did not come just for rumors. He began recounting from the moment the war god appeared amid the smoke and fire of war. The Western War ended and peace seemed near, but an ancient nightmare arose again, threatening all humanity. Facing this threat, war god Manhwa Yun declared that he himself would stand up to end this nightmare once more. Hwaeun frowned hearing about the ancient nightmare. Though uncertain of the truth, he still placed his trust in the words of the emperor and the six kings. Gazing at his reflection in the teacup, Hwaeun asked, "So did the war god die in the battle with the evil dragon?" The old man replied, "Officially, he disappeared. They say the war god dragged the evil dragon down to the bottom of the earth." Hwaeun smiled, raising his teacup. "A beautiful story, a hero sacrificing for world peace, but is it true?" With a serious gaze, Hwaeun asked directly, Do you really believe the war god became the evil dragon and vanished underground? The old man pondered, realizing Hwaeun's way of speaking was exactly like an old acquaintance. He explained further. Hwaeun had a habit of making others talk at length, then quietly revealing the important point at the last moment. He emphasized that this manner earned the old war god the nickname War God of the Smooth Tongue. Hwaeun was silent, showing embarrassment. He continued to assert, only those at the Hwajong realm could perform Byokrashan Wangryu, and only a few Amhanin knew of it. Finally, he concluded that only one person had ever used both ultimate techniques, the war god. 15 years after disappearing, someone wielding Byokrashan Wangryu suddenly reappeared at dawn. Hwaeun calmly asked if the old man thought he was related to the war god, then denied it himself, affirming his purpose was just to seek free information. The old man revealed about the Blood Dragon King, a code name limited to the royal family and Jongchenchilja, the only ones who knew he was living in seclusion. Though not pressing, the old man admitted he was quietly mobilizing forces to investigate Hwaeun's true identity. Then he recounted his journey to Nakwa Valley, believed to be the battlefield between the war god and the evil dragon, but completely empty. The old man stood amid the desolate land, observing traces of a terrible battle. No dragon marks, only signs of martial arts from the war god, evidence of a fight between humans. After the incident, the Jongchenchilja became the Six Kings and retreated to their territories. Since then, they hardly acted. Sword King Sang Wibok remained inactive at Changlang for many years. Since the war god disappeared, no one dared confirm whether his fate was due to accident or conspiracy. Hwaeun whispered a name, Yon Namchen, as if understanding something. The old man bowed slightly, his eyes sharp, asking directly, "So you want revenge, heir of the war god?" Hwaeun lowered his eyes, replying calmly but with hidden meaning, "That is your thought." A question echoed within, "Is the war god still alive?" Namchen bowed his head, his gaze complex. When asked about his connection to the war god, he frankly denied any relation because he was the war god himself. The elderly man silently widened his eyes. Faced with that declaration, he only pondered, then gently agreed, "If so, I will do as such." The old man smiled kindly, suggesting Namchen live with a smile the old war god had never had. Namchen smiled back, his eyes shining brightly in the early morning. "I understand. I will live like that, Namchen." The old man handed Namchen a red box, calling it the last gift he could give. Inside the box, he revealed the Thunder Dragon Sea, a place where sages gather to collect and analyze information. Namchen was stunned to realize he was holding a special edition created by the old man himself. Unable to accompany him personally, the old man sent a woman in black from the 12 Shadows to assist Namchen. The masked girl appeared with cold eyes. Although Namchen once pointed a sword at her, the old man still trusted her to support him. Namchen agreed to take on the mission, while a mysterious figure with long black hair suddenly appeared, signaling impending turmoil. The old man subtly reminded Namchen of the true objective, to gather information about Sa-Gongja, who came from the Solar Palace. Surprised by the old man's sharpness, Namchen could only smile in admiration. Just as he predicted, this person knew too much. The news was confirmed. Sa-Gongja had acted unusually in Songju, even defeating the gatekeeper, something that made the old man suspicious. A bearded master recalled Namchen's spirit when facing the Lord. Though young, he showed a resolve that commanded respect. A cub is still a tiger. Lord Gong was summoned, stood before the chief, and received orders. The tense atmosphere signaled an important decision was about to be made. Gong Hupyeong, regional commander, emphasized the key role of Songju and the Silent Cloud Society in building the Solar Palace today. Cheng Mui, leader of the Blood Wave Unit, interrupted bluntly, showing impatience with the long-winded talk. Gong Hupyeong did not hide his anger when mentioning Sa-Gongja, the one who dared to harm Ji Chin-hyuk. Cheng Mui responded with fury and threats of tearing him apart. However, both had to restrain themselves upon realizing the presence of close aides beside the Lord. One wrong move could ignite wrath. The chief coldly proposed responding as the enemy did, strike first, then erase all traces. Chungmui worried the great doctor would recognize the culprit due to familiarity. Gong Hupyeong replied, "Just keep him busy." They debated how to distract the great doctor, as he only acted when truly necessary. A special strategy was considered. The chief mentioned the Amchen poison shard. If someone is poisoned, even that motionless doctor must intervene. The chief pondered, are they really planning to use Amchen to eliminate Sa Gongja Hwa Yun? Lord Gong questioned the true motive of the Solar Palace Lord in sending Sa Gongja. They all understood it was no coincidence. Gong Hupyeong confirmed Sa Gongja was originally a sacrifice. Chungmui laughed loudly, eager to act, while they planned to deploy both scouts and Kingmu guards. The attack order was given. For them, the first sacrifice was difficult, but the second was merely a tool to maintain peace. Lord Gong decisively gave the order. Blood must be paid with blood. The Blood Wave unit and scouts immediately set out. Elsewhere, a sharp gaze observed everything. This person realized such intelligence should not be buried in the countryside. The Blood Cannon demon had arrived in Songju, hunting for a lost ancient treasure. Hwa Yun confirmed that to end the aftermath, they must act against the Silent Cloud Society. The old man hesitated. No evidence, no clear knowledge of what was sought, how could they act? Hwa Yun was straightforward. He knew. That item once belonged to martial god Sianhwa Yun, his legendary ancestor. The blood-forged sword from years ago, a lightning flash tearing through the night sky, was Sianhwa's relic, now about to be uncovered. The silver-haired man revealed a weapon that once terrified all martial arts circles, the Amchen Ilguang Demon Sword, also called the Amchen Demon Sword. The demon sword once devoured anyone who dared to touch it, but only the martial god, the only one who could control it, treated it like an ordinary sword. After the martial god disappeared, the demon sword shattered into many pieces, releasing a fierce demonic aura that spread throughout the central plains. The man confirmed that a piece of the sword was present in Songju, and as Sa Gongja of the Solar Palace, he should be aware of this. Hwa Yun asserted, as long as he could enter the main hall of the Silent Cloud Society, he would identify the shard. Then, suddenly, a knock on the door sounded. A man from the Silent Cloud Society came to apologize and requested to see the doctor urgently. Under the pretense of desperation, he insisted on meeting the doctor immediately, causing confusion inside. He hurriedly explained that a leader in the group had been poisoned, his blood turning black, and his condition was extremely critical. He earnestly begged for help, forcing the doctor to ask for the victim's identity to decide. Unable to provide a reasonable explanation, he reluctantly revealed that the victim was the young master Ji Chin-hyuk, someone deeply cherished by the Lord. The man in black bowed apologetically, admitting that because the doctor was not seeing visitors, they had acted excessively under the leader's orders. When asked why, the old man in yellow froze upon learning that those poisoned were Sorihiem and the gatekeeper. Hwa Yun was suspicious, unsure if it was coincidence or conspiracy. Both the doctor's colleague and friend were poisoned strangely. The man confirmed that Sorihiem was the one who examined the guard's injuries. By afternoon, both began vomiting black blood. Hearing Sorihiem's name, the old man immediately stood up, deciding to go personally. But just as he intended to take Hwa Yun along, a voice interrupted to stop him. The doctor was angry upon learning Sa Gongja was banned from the main hall, considering the reason unreasonable since he also belonged to the Solar Palace. The man in black tried to warn, nothing in this world is so coincidental, implying Sa Gongja's presence could endanger Chin-hyuk. He confessed, the ban was only to protect Sa Gongja, because once inside, no one could guarantee his safe return. The man emphasized that the Yado, Kingmu, and Blood Fang units could attack Sa Gongja immediately, but the doctor still worried about leaving him alone. Sa Gongja smiled reassuringly, affirming he was no longer a child and nothing could happen, especially while still on Silent Cloud's land. The old lord agreed to let Hwa Yun stay, advising him to seek help from a nearby law envoy if anything happened. The old lord and his subordinates left the Great Hall, stepping toward where the incident was unfolding with heavy hearts. Left alone, Hwa Yun sighed, trying to reassure himself that everything might just be coincidence. Yet intuition warned him that blood was about to be shed, a dark and murderous aura swirling around his body. At that moment, deadly lightning bolts shot through the window, striking directly where Hwa Yoon sat. A barrage of spears pierced through the window, flying coldly into the room with lethal intent. The ground trembled as spears plunged in, creating a cloud of dust amid the silent night. Hwa Yoon narrowed his eyes tightly and stood in the darkness. He was ready, blood would be spilled, but it would be the enemy, not theirs. In the dim light, Hwa thoughtfully sipped tea, softly calling out to the 12 Shadows, the secret organization he still kept in contact with. A shadow descended from the ceiling, reporting a sudden change. Half of the Blood Tide team and the entire Recon Bird team had been replaced. Hwa cautiously inquired about the nature of the Recon Bird team. A flashback revealed they were a mix of intelligence agents and assassins, experts in stealth and various techniques. Looking over the silent cloud mansion at night, Hwa bluntly asked, "What percentage chance do I have to survive and leave here?" The messenger quietly stepped closer, surprised by Hwa's calmness and unusual frankness amid the surrounding dangers. Hwa turned back, eyes full of challenge, smiling as he asked, "Want a bet with me?" He confidently declared, "I bet I survive and you bet I die." If he won, he wanted all his questions answered. The girl in black retorted, "If you live, then nothing changes." Hwa calmly replied, "Because I'm sure I will win." The girl silently stared at Hwa, unable to deny his boldness and confidence. In the quiet night, a shadow silently slipped past the door, signaling that an incident was approaching. Poisonous mist began spreading around Ji-Chun-Mile, its pungent scent hinting at an invisible threat tightening its grip. Step by silent step, it advanced into the mist, signaling the enemy's intent to directly finish him off. Ji-Chun-Mile calmly breathed in, confident because Solar Heart made his body immune to toxins. A shadow dashed through the thick fog, carrying a tightly compressed murderous intent. Ji-Chun-Mile reacted instantly, his sword flashing as it cut through the enemy's deadly attack. The assassin panicked and shouted upon realizing Hwa was completely unaffected by the poisonous mist. Unable to react in time, he was horrified as Hwa suddenly closed in and easily disarmed him. With cold eyes, Hwa delivered a precise strike, chopping the sword cleanly from his opponent's hand. He trembled and stepped back, while Hwa calmly raised his sword, the reflection in the cold blade like a fate already sealed. In shimmering blue light, Hwa closed his eyes, the calm before the storm ready to sweep away his enemies. The group of assassins charged simultaneously, surrounding Hwa amid the lingering poisonous smoke, determined to kill him on the spot. One attacker swooped down from above, eyes blazing with murderous intent, but Hwa remained calm, closing his eyes and gently turning his body. Hwa's sword unleashed a heavy slash, the compressed power creating a fierce wave of blood. He shifted his attack stance, spinning the blade at an unimaginable speed, delivering absolute force in every strike. In the streak of red light, each enemy fell under Hwa's deadly whirlwind. None could withstand a single blow. The blade stained with blood, each deep red drop falling onto the tiled floor. The weapon grew heavier with blood. That was the destiny of killing intent. And it was Hwa, the blood war god, who bore the fate of feeding that sword with blood. Under the overwhelming killing intent, the enemies fled in terror. One trembling shouted, "Retreat!" Hwa stepped forward, eyes icy cold. His voice rang out calm yet imposing, "Beg for your life." He stomped beside the defeated foe, speaking evenly, "Say it, beg for a death like a dog, beg this once." Two enemies angrily roared at the insult, yelling that Hwa was worse than dogs. Hwa smiled calmly, sword in hand ready, revealing that no one taught him. Only the beat of the Solar Heart was enough. On the sickbed, a weak man blamed the royal physician for deceiving him. The man in yellow robes replied coldly, "I had no other choice." The old royal physician frowned slightly when mentioning So Rihun, an important figure to the Black Cloud Assembly. He cautiously asked, "Who are you?" A new man appeared, smiling with hands clasped in greeting, introducing himself as Ji-Young, the leader of the reconnaissance team of the Black Cloud Assembly. The Grand Matriarch doubted Ji-Young's intentions and questioned the involvement of Jangson. Ji-Young responded vaguely. Ji-Young admitted that it was Jangson who gave the order, seeking revenge on Hwa-Yun for defeating his nephew, the second young master. The Grand Matriarch blamed herself for not passing down the ultimate life and death strike technique. Hwa-Yun alone could not fight against an organized group of assassins. Bad news arrived. The deputy captain had led the assassination team to act before receiving official orders. The Grand Matriarch angrily demanded the status of the blood-tied team. An urgent order. Report immediately if there are any new developments. Ji-Young appeared worried as he realized things were spiraling out of control, but remained confident that handling the fourth prince would not be difficult. The chief royal physician questioned Ji-Young about future consequences, implicitly warning him about the death of the fourth prince's mother, a death not entirely innocent. The chief royal physician's eyes blazed with anger. He admitted he would go to hell, but the man before him might have to pay immediately. Faced with overwhelming pressure, Ji-Young forced a smile and declared that if the chief royal physician wanted his life, he was ready to give it. The chief royal physician coldly replied that Ji-Young's life was too insignificant to concern him, and perhaps the one to take his head would be the fourth prince himself. Ji-Young chuckled faintly while the royal physician silently watched. Both seemed to be waiting for something approaching. The royal physician sternly corrected. Hwa-Yun was no longer the fourth young master but a special combat leader, someone they should not underestimate. Entering the room, the royal physician quietly observed the patient and thought to himself, Hwa-Yun can handle the reconnaissance team. The plan will turn if he meets the northern martial lord. Seeing strange symptoms on the patient's hand, the royal physician decided to verify Hwa-Yun's hypothesis, that they had deliberately created this case to lure him out. But thinking of the Black Cloud Assembly's bold scheme, the royal physician couldn't help but doubt. Could the palace lord really have been unprepared for this? Hwa-Yun stood amid the blood-soaked battlefield, completely overpowering his opponents. A question arose in someone's mind. Was bringing him here a deliberate plot? He smiled provocatively, reenacting the familiar fighting stance of a once arrogant foe, and then bluntly declared that he was the one who ended him. Sharp sarcasm continued to rain down. Hwa-Yun mocked the enemy's skills and despised those who followed the weak. They began losing control in anger. Hwa-Yun swung his sword, his weak internal energy still triggering dark energy. He realized provoking the enemy was easier than imagined, and that created an opportunity. A wave of dark energy erupted, terrifying the enemies. They screamed, panicked, accusing Hwa-Yun of practicing demonic arts, their ears nearly torn by that dark power. Hwa-Yun calmly replied that in this era no one distinguished between good and evil. As a member of the Sun Palace, of course he used demonic arts. The enemy was startled, realizing the second young master's death was not by chance. He bitterly regretted underestimating someone without internal energy. Overwhelmed, the soldiers hurriedly fled, shouting loyalty, in unison to save face in defeat. Hwa-Yun gripped his sword hilt tightly, his body drenched in blood and sweat. The battle was won, but clearly not easily. Two villagers silently watched Hwa-Yun with astonished eyes. They wondered, had this young man become too familiar with horrors? Hwa-Yun stepped into the bustling market, where the calls of vendors and the flow of people never ceased, but his eyes remained alert, scanning the surroundings. Amid the crowded crowd, Hwa-Yun paused as he recognized a familiar scent, making it impossible for his mind to relax. A young boy selling goods smiled and approached Hwa-Yun, offering a steaming bun, asking politely and hopefully. Hwa-Yun smiled softly, handed over money to buy the bun, then gently told the boy to share it in half. But the boy's awkward refusal made him change his attitude. Still smiling, Hwa-Yun coldly tightened his grip on the sword hilt and asked if he should cut open the boy's belly to verify his words. As soon as he detected an unusual approach, Hwa-Yun immediately acted, swinging his sword to sweep away the opponent with a powerful counterattack. Biting the bun with suspicion, Hui frowned as he noticed a strange taste. The poison was stronger than before, but he just muttered, "Again." Despite being poisoned, Hui remained calm. With the special constitution of a mind-yang cultivator, all poisons were ineffective against him. Hui smiled upon receiving information from 12 Shadows. The destination was Great Thunder Yellow Dragon Temple, where the Northern Martial Lord was present. He silently placed a bet on the journey. If he arrived before being assassinated, that would be a victory. If he fell to a sneak attack, then the win belonged to them. Amid the lively streets, Hui strode into the night that was setting traps. The real battle was only just beginning.